which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I close the Hartford Selectboard and open as the local liquor control board. And as you all have probably noticed, these are all renewals.
Can I make a point,
Yes.
Madam Chair? And I've talked about this with Lana and Lisa, and they said that here, where there's a long list of such applications, if some brave soul wanted to read all of these as one motion, you could adopt it as a slate.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Since they're all renewals.
Put things together before this, so that would be
Just an option for you.
Yeah. Is there anybody on from any of these groups that by any chance, I
don't think Jeremy Warren's not one of them, right?
No. Okay. Eric, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wanted to ask if anyone on the board had any questions or any comments about any of them. And if not, then I think the slate option sounds pretty reasonable.
I agree. Okay. Anybody have any problems? So I will take a motion. Who's ready to do the long?
Let's draw straws. Madam Chair, I move that the select board approve the following liquor licenses. A second class liquor license, tobacco license, and vape tobacco substitute endorsement for Evans Group of Vermont, Inc., DBA Evans Express Mart, 1038 North Main Street, White River Junction, Vermont 05001. Also, Max Overstrom Coleman, DBA Fontanalis LLC, 27 North Main Street, Suite 10, White River Junction, Vermont 05001 for a second class liquor license. A first and third class liquor license and an outside consumption permit for the same Max Overstrom Coleman, DBA Wolf Tree, 40 Courier Street, White River at White River Junction, Vermont 05001. Also, a first class liquor license for Phnom Penh Sandwich Station, 7 North Main Street, White River Junction, Vermont 05001. And a first class liquor license for Little Istanbul Incorporated, DBA Little Istanbul, 27 North Main Street, White River Junction, Vermont 05001. And a first class and third class liquor license and an outside consumption permit for Queechee Club Incorporated, DBA Queechee Club, 3268 Queechee Main Street, Queechee, Vermont 05059. Also a first class, second class, and third class liquor license, a tobacco license, and a vape tobacco substitute endorsement for Summit Stores LLC, DBA 3 Cat Coffee. That's 18 and 42 Sykes Mountain Avenue, White River Junction, Vermont 05001. Also, a second class liquor license, tobacco license, a vape tobacco substitute endorsement for Summit Stores LLC, DBA Queechee Mobile at 3479 Woodstock Road, Queechee, Vermont 05059. Last but not least, a first and third class license for Bloods Catering and Party Rentals, Inc., 1147 Hartford Ave, White River Junction, Vermont 05001.
We have a motion from Brandon. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ashley, thank you for seconding the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye. So it is 6-0 since Mike is absent today. I'm going to close the local liquor control board, and we won't have the local cannabis control board because there's no business. And so I will reopen as the Hartford Select Board. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Brandon?
I would like to propose the consideration by the board of requesting a special meeting for this board The special meeting would be for the purpose of considering a Gaza ceasefire resolution, similar to the one proposed last year by a community group. So actually what I'm proposing is that we add an item to this agenda that would allow the board to vote on whether we would like the town manager and the board chair, yourself, to come up with a date for such a special meeting.
Okay, so we would add that as letter G to the agenda. I'll need a motion for that, right, John?
Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion in favor of this?
I think, Madam Chair, that was the motion, right?
If I'm not mistaken, I would like to move
Okay.
that be added to the agenda.
Okay, so Brandon's made the motion. Is there a second? Eric?
Second.
Okay, Eric's second. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Oh, sorry, can I just ask what,
Yes.
we moved a little quickly, just to clarify, so this would be a special meeting of the board that the public was invited to have a discussion about a reproposal of the resolution.
Sorry, no, the
Sorry.
motion is simply to put 5G on the agenda,
On the
which is to
agenda.
discuss
We can,
Oh, just,
that,
yes.
right?
okay,
Yeah.
so we're not discussing it now,
No,
okay,
no.
gotcha.
Sorry.
okay.
No, it's okay.
You're discussing whether you want to discuss it.
All right, so I'll state that again. All in favor, say aye.
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 And so the motion passes 6-0. So we'll put that on the agenda for letter G. Okay, so the next is public comment. Yes.
Pete Sandra on White River Junction. Before I get to the main comments I need to make about the transit, which I talked to you about, need to give an update as to why I was not here last. Two quick items. One, John, Mary, or someone, remind me to follow through with you later on the issues regarding veterans in Dartmouth. And two, regarding the Gaza. I know Mary and John were here, but Brandon, the rest of you, here's a local connection to the region regarding the history. 1 year ago today, we all know about the strike that the IDF did on the Iranian consul embassy in Damascus. Well, the Iranian commander in charge of that embassy was connected to my family. And it may have been, and this may have been the first time in Jewish and Iranian history, a descendant of Kurush, who saved the Jews from extinction 25 centuries ago, was killed by a Jew. So, little something to consider about the brutality of what we're seeing from Israel and Zionists. And regarding the transit, Brandon, what we were talking about regarding Dartmouth in the wake of the protests regarding interstate transit is coming to pass, and I experienced it the week of the last select board meeting, as it gave new meaning to pain in the ass, because what's going on, I've talked with Miranda about this in depth regarding laws. New York has laws mandating cash payments. New Hampshire, they have an equivalent service for those who cannot make online payments. And Vermont has we have the means locally and statewide to enact such an ordinance, because many of us, like myself, cannot use card payments or pay apps. So for understandable reasons. And basically, it's causing people to be to be stranded against it. We've had quite a few people get stranded here in the region, and people are unable to travel back to the region for that problem, because simply Dartmouth has been mismanaging they have the stake in the coach, even though it's no longer a controlling stake. And it's easier to take the coach going to Boston or New York, but coming back, it's easier to use other services instead of Dartmouth. And this is part of the fallout from last year's protests and the way Dartmouth has been behaving as of late. And among other things, another reason we need to get this going on, mandating cash payments the way New York and New Hampshire does. There has been more traffickers in the region, and I've had to remind, especially the people here at the bus station up the road from here, that is supposed to be a place of refuge for people who are fleeing abusive situations and trying to get somewhere safe. So please, because, I mean, this is an issue that
Thank you.
needs to
You're
be
gonna
addressed.
need to,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other public comments? Tim, don't forget to tell us who you are.
Yes, good evening. Tim Ferrier, White River Junction, Vermont. And I sort of feel like of all the challenges we have as a culture internationally, locally, whatever, I sort of want to focus on the local because that's perhaps keeps my sanity. You guys have a lot of challenges ahead of you in the coming year from my notes, which include Bugby, transfer station, curbside recycling, parking in White River, even paving roads. And the reason why I'm here tonight is to bring up this concept that I think I've brought up before of how you garner data and information in your community to make good decisions, right? Because you guys are the governing body, and I appreciate you all sitting there. But I've always been sort of troubled in Hartford of how we get to decision-making as a community. And I'll give you one example tonight that may help that perspective. Parking White River Junction. So I know a decent number of the people who are involved in White River, you know, and have been for a long time in the private sector. Mike Davidson, Matt Busey, Bill Bittinger. You know, there's a lot of people that own a lot of real estate in White River and are kind of involved in it on a private sector level. And so what I'm troubled by is this concept that we've sort of developed arguably some new parking regulation overlay with virtually no input from the people that are involved in it intimately day in and day out. So for me, like the interface between the public and the private sector around any decision that you guys have to make, seems to me you want a level of engagement and information that allows you to make really good decisions on policy and what you're doing. And I still personally feel like there's this disconnect between engaging and getting that information and extracting it and then making good decisions about what we do as a town. And I just plead with you to try and reach out to various groups and various information sources so that when you have to make tough decisions or new decisions around policy or what should we do with the Bugby Center, that you're incorporating and integrating these input points, because otherwise we just don't end up in a better place. And I'll give you one more quick example. If I have my 2-minute window, I know is short. The public high school, the high school up on the hill here, we know is dealing with some tough issues, right? PCB challenges. Honestly, it's kind of a dated, terrible facility in my humble opinion. So what an opportunity to take the perhaps changes dramatically that they need to make architecturally up there, take Bugby, our seniors who are a valuable resource in our community. What if we did an integration where we suddenly were building a state-of-the-art, amazing learning facility incorporated with senior facilities that was like the envy of New England, right? Like integrating multi-generational opportunities with like as a community. So I'm just throwing that out as one example of the things that we could hopefully, you know, find the energy and the synergy of like reaching out amongst each other to end up with better outcomes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Is there anybody online? Or Kim, great.
Hi, good evening. Kim Souza, Hartford, Vermont. I'm curious if there's been any update on the process for the fair and impartial policing and welcoming Hartford ordinance discussion.
Yes, actually, I have a few notes. If you give me a second. Yes, I have reached out and talked to people that I feel would be good for a representative group from Hartford to interact with the Attorney General's office and the the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. So the team that I've assembled consists of myself, the police chief, the town attorney, and either Mary or Mike from the select board, both of whom have expressed willingness to assist in that way. Also reached out and asked for a meeting with the Assistant Attorney General's office and the VCJC. I've done quite a bit of research and developed some ideas for achieving better alignment between the town's current FIP and our WHO. And I've also reached out to Vermont sanctuary cities or otherwise very diverse cities to find out how, in their experience, they decided on their approach with their FIP adoption. So I would say progress is being made. We're looking forward to having a meeting with the Attorney General's office and the Police Academy to try to determine ways where we can get, again, better alignment between our FIP and our WHO.
Good time to ask one quick
Sure.
follow-up. So if, and you said you did speak with Winooski administration?
I spoke actually with Winooski, but more recently had an email exchange with Bill Fraser up in Montpelier. And I have reached out to I won't call him the chief because there's so much turmoil in the Burlington Police Department, but one of the higher ranking officers who I felt might have some institutional memory. Haven't heard back from Burlington, but they've each told me some things that maybe I ought not to share publicly, but how they went about the task of adopting their FIP, given that they were strongly interested and at the same time being as protective as possible of their immigrant population.
Great, thank you. And just one final thing is if any modifications were proposed for the ordinance, that would need to go through a whole public process.
Oh, of course.
right?
And that's not anything that I'm intending to do. I'm intending to see about ways we can modify our FIP to match the WHO, because I know the people have spoken on the WHO.
Thank you, Kim. Anybody online? Okay, great. Okay, we'll go on then to select board comments and. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
It wasn't planned.
That's all right. Make yourself at home.
Hi, Pat Cook of Hartford Village. And I just wonder if there's been any update on these concrete slabs that are in the center of Hartford Village that were tied up with Mark Wood, and he died. And I know there was litigation going on, and I just wondered, is the eyesore ever going to go away?
It's a topic that I hope to raise in executive session soon with the select board, several new members on the select board. I'd like to update them, if not at the next meeting, then sometime soon thereafter, giving them an idea of what's happening with pending litigation on several matters. One of them is the Old Woods Diner situation over there.
Okay, all right, still in progress.
Well, we're going to have to advise the new members as to what's going on from a legal point of view and what their options are.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. All right. I'll go back to you and see if there's any more. All right. Thank you. So we'll go on to select board comments and announcements. I'll start with Ashley.
I just have a question. Is that okay? Tim, I really appreciated your comment. And what was your last name? Ferry?
Ferial.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird name because I think I was a feral in Ireland and then they misspelled it. So we're now Ferials, pronounced like burial, just to remind you. So.
Well, I would love to reach out to you. I don't know what I don't know if you're going to stay for the whole meeting, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm really interested in what you talked about, and that is making that connection is one of my priorities for being on the board. And so I'd love to connect more on that at
Thank
any
you.
time.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Brandon?
Nothing general.
Okay.
Yeah, I just do have a general comment of gratitude, appreciation. I didn't mention it at our last meeting, which is sort of our first official meeting of the new board, I think. Maybe I'm lost track of time, but anyway,
Right. No, you're right.
it was okay. I just really did want to thank the 3 new members of the board for putting your names out there, for running, and for bringing your energy and interest to this board. I'm really grateful to have a full board and with people that are kind of bringing new perspectives and representing people in our town. I really am just wanted to say that publicly. And yeah, grateful to have taking on the challenges of the new year with all of you as my colleagues.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ina.
Okay, Miranda.
I will get in on this meeting with you too. That's all I have.
All right, Eric.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. I was looking back through appropriation requests recently and noticed that Junction Access Media has been requesting $5,000 annually since 2019, and that has not changed. And it's one of the very few things that hasn't changed for that long. And so just a shout out to Junction Access Media for the work they do, for all of the meetings that they cover. And, you know, I think we've been in a tough spot to find other resources if the town didn't have that resource here. So I appreciate the leadership and all of the work that people there do.
You do.
Amen.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
just thought of something else that's super relevant to that I wanted to announce. Is
All
that
right.
okay? So I am working with I'm gonna forget the name of the formal organization because it's a complicated acronym, but the Week of the Young Child is an event that happens annually and is hosted by some of our local organizations that support early childhood educators in the Upper Valley. And last year they did an event in Lebanon to kick off the Week of the Young Child. And this year they're doing it in Hartford at the Cornerstone Community Center. And it's this Saturday at, I think it starts at 10 a.m. or noon. But if you go to Google and look up the Week of the Young Child at Cornerstone Community Center, you'll find all the details. And they had reached out to us, to John, and to the board to see if anyone could come speak and make a proclamation, which I volunteered to do. So I'm really excited to be there and hope that we'll see some folks come out. There will be bingo at noon.
Thank you. And I'll just announce, which everybody probably already knows and has been there, but again, a shout out to Chief Connie Kelly. And I know many of you went to see her and congratulated her and chat with her. So she's a great person and will be a great chief. All right. Thank you. So we are moving on to appointments. And so first is to consider the new appointment of Kim Souza to the Town and School Meeting Committee and for a 2-year term beginning April 1st, 2025 and ending March 31st, 2027. Kim, you want to step up to the podium?
Hello again. I think, as I mentioned in my application, I think it's a really valuable committee for the town. And prior to this 2025 election, I had reached out to the town manager to ask if the committee needed any support in their work to, support and promote the events surrounding town meeting, and learned that essentially the committee had all but dissolved as members' terms expired after serving a couple of terms. There's essentially no remaining membership. And so my hope is that I will be the first of several. There's 2 appointees through the select board and 2 appointees through the school board. And I hope that others will apply and be appointed, and that it's an opportunity to just, kind of evolve the town meeting engagement process. And like over the years, I had a long conversation with the town clerk about sort of the things that had worked in the past that maybe haven't worked coming forward and post-pandemic and things like that, and also with previous members. So in any case, I hope we have like a nice sort of mixed group of people that would just help produce events around town meeting, including also the citizen that so graciously stepped up to do the Hartford Voters Guide this year. That seems like the kind of thing that could be a tool that the town could implement through the town and school through the Town and School Meeting Committee. So that would be another kind of new introduction that I think we could consider.
Kim, does Do you know if there's anything being done to pull in other people? You talked about the fact that 2 are appointed by select board to the school board. Do you?
So I know the town clerk said that she's been trying to like just notify folks and recruit. I think it might be a great thing if the communications person wanted to do another rally. It's definitely not, I mean, I think the committee determines it. It's not necessarily like a board charged committee. It is more based on the charter. The town charter is kind of its ruling document. And so, yeah, I think that in any promotion of the availability to the committee would be great. But sorry, I think I lost my train of thought. What I was gonna say is it's not a huge heavy lift. Like my guess is it'd be up to the committee and if I were appointed, but likely that meetings would be just once a month or something leading up to, and then maybe a little more frequent from October, November, approaching the actual town meeting cycle.
Great. Miranda, did you have a question?
No, there is a hand up.
Okay.
All right, Jeremy, you should be able to talk.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy Warren. I'd actually just like to reach out to Kim. I'm a new member of the school board, and I'd be happy to work with you.
Jeremy, can you tell us your residence or, what village?
White River Junction. Yep.
All right, thank you, Jeremy.
Awesome. Yeah, it would be ideal. Like I know that members of the school board and the select board cannot sit on the committee itself, but they can certainly do outreach to members in the community and in the school district community to recruit people to be on this committee. And then I think obviously anyone would be welcome to participate in the committee's meetings to share ideas and concerns, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Kim. All right, I'll take a motion for the new appointment.
Madam Chair,
Ashley,
I move to appoint Kim Souza to the Town and School Meeting Committee for a 2-year term beginning April 1st, 2025 and ending March 31st, 2027.
do we have a second?
A second.
Ida, thank you for the second. And all in favor, or I should ask, is there any more discussion or questions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye, so that passes unanimously 6-0. Thank you, Kim, and congratulations, and welcome aboard. Okay, so.
Was there something else you wanted to mention, Madam Chair?
Good thing, short-term memory. We want to thank Kim for many, many years of service to the select board, as well as now she's carrying on her service in more ways than one. We have a special gavel for her. She can keep the rest of the town and school meeting committee under control. So this is our thanks to you, Kim.
Sorry, you have to assemble it yourself.
The instructions are in the box.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's a very kind gesture. I will say that having this gavel is nice. What I really would like are my emails, but I will accept this gavel instead.
Thank you, Kim. We appreciate it. All right, so then our next appointment, a new appointment, is to consider the new appointment of Miranda Dupre to the Hartford Committee on Equity and Inclusion for a 2-year term beginning April 1st, 2025 and ending on March 31st, 2027.
Should I go?
Pardon?
Should I go up to her?
You can stay there. That's fine. That's fine. So Miranda is right here to answer any questions that anybody might have. We've had our application, so I'll direct anything towards Miranda.
Any hard questions?
Is there anybody online?
No hands raised.
Okay. Oh, I guess Brandon.
I guess this is only a technical question. I wondered whether the name as stated in this agenda is the actual name of this committee. I think it might be, there might be another word in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have the acronym HCORI that we say. It's the Hartford Commission.
Commission.
Committee.
Committee?
Is it commission or committee? Is that what you're talking about, Brandon?
Committee,
Yeah.
okay.
It
The
just says-
Hartford
The
Committee.
R is the.
Yeah, it just says equity.
Oh,
Who's
okay.
race,
Racial
racial
equity.
Got it.
equity and inclusion for a 2-year term.
Mhm.
So,
That's
okay.
why I'd be the solo member of that committee.
Right, you would be. Okay, again, I will take a motion from Eric.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will make a motion to appoint Miranda Dupre to the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion for a 2-year term beginning April 1st, 2025 and ending on March 31st, 2027.
Okay, we have a motion by Eric. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and a second by Ashley. And again, any discussion?
Madam Chair, I don't know if you want to roll call the vote, but I'm gonna abstain. Just, I feel like
I
that's
can,
probably
I
for the
can take
best.
I can take a roll call vote. That's fine. All right, so we will vote. And Eric, you want to start us off?
Aye.
All right. I,
Aye.
Brandon,
Aye.
Ashley,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. So that's 5-0-1.
Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations. And I know they'll really appreciate your help. All right, thank you very much. So we move on then to the town manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just highlight a few things. The town manager joined select board members Ashley Andreas, Miranda Dupre, and Eric Kraus in Montpelier on Saturday, the 22nd of March for a VLCT training session. A splendid time was had by all. Other opportunities for education and training of select board members will be discussed later in tonight's agenda. A reminder that each select board member is required to take a 45-minute online ethics training before September 25th of this year. And I think today, per Mary's request, I sent you all, again, that link to that training.
Thank you.
As the chair pointed out, we had a good reception for Chief Connie Kelly on March 25th, a good turnout, and so much support and well wishes for our new chief. So again, congratulations to Connie Kelly. Lieutenant Commander Carl Ebbighausen of the HPD Outreach Division has retired from the HPD. And with the recent promotion of Connie Kelly from Lieutenant Commander of Patrol, this leaves 2 of the 3 HPD division commander positions vacant. So officers are now rotating through these positions on a 4 to 6 week basis to get a sense of what each department involves. And at some future point, there'll be a discussion of promotion to fill those positions. A reminder that on April 15th at 4:30, just before the select board meeting, there will be a site visit to review the proposed Hickory Ridge Road realignment. This is part of the process related to the housing to be built on Sykes Mountain Avenue. So I'll give everybody a reminder as we approach that time because it's so unusual to do so. And so stay tuned for that. Town manager will be out of the office for parts of tomorrow and Thursday to attend the 2nd annual Municipal Solutions Summit to be held in Woodstock down the road. And I'm hoping to take Friday off. We'll see how that goes. In terms of SIGAX, I just have a few things I'd like to highlight. We've begun our ice out procedures at the Wendell Barwood Arena, or WABA as it's known. Some of you took a tour there recently, so you might know what that is all about. It's quite a process. During ice out, staff have started repainting the interior of the building and are completing a deep cleaning of the facility. With continuing on with Parks and Rec news, there are 3 contractors that attended an Emerge building demolition RFP site visit on March 21st. Bids are due on April 4th. 1 bid was received for the Hartford Beautification Program. The program will include planting 50 seasonal planters, which include hanging planters and vases in the villages of Hartford. Town clerk wants to remind everybody that if you haven't registered your dog, you're late and you're going to be subject to fines for being late, but we hope that you'll still come in, however belatedly. The communications and media specialist notes that he's been working on setting up an ethics and transparency web page dealing with the state and the town's efforts in this regard. So stay tuned for that going live at some future time. The environmental and sustainability coordinator, who you will hear from later tonight, notes that on March 16th, members of the Select Board and Energy Commission took that tour of WABA to look at operations and possible areas of improvement at the ice rink. The assessor's office points out that they met recently with Tyler Technologies to discuss the reassessment wrap-up schedule. And that Rick Vincent recently toured the Wilder Dam with our consultant, Brian Fogg, who specializes in assessing infrastructure of that nature. The Department of Public Works points out that Michael Coleman has begun work as our new highway foreman and Rhonda Mitchell as the new part-time transfer station site attendant. They wished well Randy Herron, the Hartford Assistant Wastewater Chief, who has retired after a 30-year run with the town. Thank you, Randy. We also met, that is Brian, Chris Holsworth, and myself with the VTrans District 4 Manager, Chris Bump, to discuss our application and strong interest in receiving grants for roads and structures here in Hartford. I think we mentioned that one. Okay, the Department of Planning and Development points out that they've completed and submitted an application for the comprehensive update to the town's capital improvement plan. So we're sitting by with our fingers crossed on that. The fire department notes that during due to a recent resignation, there is a vacancy, and they're actively now seeking a full-time firefighter / EMT / paramedic. The application period's open until April 25th. As of the writing of the SIGACs, they were heading down a team of firefighters with Chief Cooney to make the pitch for accreditation in Orlando, Florida. But under the category of breaking news, we have received very good news, and that is that the Hartford Fire Department has been re-accredited to be the only accredited fire organization in the state of Vermont. The commission that indicates or that issues such accreditation, the Commission on Fire Accreditation International has a statement that reads, "The Commission on Fire Accreditation International is dedicated to assisting fire and emergency service agencies throughout the world in achieving excellence through self-assessment and accreditation in order to provide continuous quality improvements and the enhancement of service delivery to their communities. Hartford's Fire Department, having met in full the requirements of the Commission on Fire Accreditation International, as witnessed by a team of their peers and members of the Commission, is hereby awarded the status of accredited agency. In witness whereof this accredited agency award is issued this first day of April 2025. There was a quotable quote from the chief who says, "This accreditation is a testament to the hard work and dedication of the men and women of the Hartford Fire Department. It reflects our unwavering commitment to providing the highest level of service to the Hartford community and beyond. We are proud to be recognized as a leader in fire and emergency services, and we will continue to strive for excellence in all that we do." Now, wrapping up, I'll point out that the fire department has also noted the activities recently of the community nurse program, who now has 25 active clients, 12 inactive clients who have previously received service but not currently active, and there are 6 pending referrals expected to become active soon. The community nurse primarily is focused on enrolling new clients, conducting home visits, and working closely with social service organizations to ensure comprehensive care management. Every Friday, the nurse hosts open office hours at the Bugby Senior Center And during these 4-hour shifts, she typically facilitates 1 to 2 case conferences, meets with clients or families, and engages socially with the senior committee. The senior community, I should say, I'm sorry. The nurse participates in a monthly regional pop-up clinic in Lebanon, where she collaborates with community organizations to offer screenings and preventative services for the unhoused population. This effort requires approximately 5 hours of her time each month. 3 of the 4 scheduled meet and greet events have already taken place. The final one will occur on April 22nd, 2025 at the Wilder Library. Police Department notes that Officer Kelsey Nanatovich completed her Level 2 Police Academy training and is currently in field training until she goes to the Level 3 Police Academy in August.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay,
Madam Chair, can I ask a clarifying question?
sure.
What was that date again for the Hickory Road realignment?
It's
site visit?
2 weeks from now, just
Okay.
before the select board meeting. So it'll be April 15th at 4:30. But I will send out probably several reminders because it's such an unusual event.
Is there a place to park? Or,
I will learn all these
Okay.
details and there'll be
Okay.
more to come.
all right. Any other questions before, Brandon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Town Manager, I was wondering if you could just repeat what you were saying about the capital improvement plan.
Ah.
I wasn't able to find it.
Oh, I got it. Basically, we've heard about the decision to pursue the application and it has now been submitted by the application deadline. So now we're waiting to find out if we're going to receive the funds to do that.
It's a grant.
It's a grant, yes, yes.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So we are ready for the Sister City Committee recap of their trip to France.
Hi, Allison Litton, French teacher at Hartford High School, resident of Wilder, Vermont. I'm not 100% sure how.
Allison, do you need the help of Jim to make you a presenter? And that way you
Uh,
might have access to the screen. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, you have to join me soon.
Okay. Well, I will try to do 2 things at once. I sent a PDF of the slideshow ahead of time, but I'll try to do a couple things at once. Ahead of time.
Is it in the agenda packet? I'm just wondering.
It is in the
It
agenda
is
packet.
in the agenda packet.
Okay.
Yes, it should be. I don't know if someone else can project that just for the sake of time, but if not, that's perfect. Yeah, I'll take it.
Not your first page?
No, it is. It's just interesting. It's in black and white, but that's fine.
I thought that was intentional.
Yeah.
No, it definitely
Very
was
French.
not, but that's fine. No, we'll take it. So it was really an incredible experience. We're coming up on the year anniversary of this trip. And actually, I realized if you can bump down to slide number 9, because I actually want to start with the student testimonials of this trip. And those are, hopefully they're going to play, but
Oh, no. For these videos.
okay, that's unfortunate. So, I mean, I can, I have it all set up. I just,
If you go to the
time,
town
right? We're not
website, if you just Google like Hartford Select-Board, the Zoom link is right there and you can just click the Zoom link.
Yeah, we can wait a second if you want.
yeah, that would be helpful. Sorry, I didn't,
That's okay.
And if you want to sit near John.
Yeah, you can sit near John and Nick can.
I
help you
have a
out.
dongle all set up. I want to make this as efficient as possible because, I know that y'all have, things that you need to do.
That's all right. We're ahead of schedule, so take your time. Perfect.
Is it possible to bump to the next agenda item? Or is that gonna be
Fine.
That
That
would
one
be
might
Dana. I
take-
don't know if he's here. He might be.
It's a long agenda item.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
it'll take a while.
Okay. Um, uh, I think, yeah, I am actually gonna take a minute, to take care of this. I'm gonna try to talk and, I'm gonna try to multitask. Because I think the most significant piece of this trip, and I am a teacher, so I can multitask.
Better you than me.
You've been in the classroom, you know what it's
Yes,
like.
that was a while ago.
So this was a unique experience. We had our first opportunity to send students to France. We have had a sister city relationship with the town of Sinon in France for a number of years. And this was the first time we sent students over. And we sent 3 students from the Hartford area Career and Technical Center to France. The town of Sinon, which is our sister city, the one educational institution that exists in the town of Sinon is a technical center. And it is a school that focuses on cosmetology and home health care. So when we were looking at sending students to France, we were focusing on an area where we could connect with students over there. So we sent 3 of our cosmetology students. Sorry, this. I apologize, y'all. I wasn't.
Can I just say, I don't know, Nick, would you mind giving a?
I'm trying to get to the Zoom. I have the agenda in front of me. The Zoom link is not actually a live link. I have to, I can come in because
Next to
You don't mind, yeah.
So we sent students over in April, and they had the opportunity to spend time both in the town of Sinon and in the cosmetology classes. And I think the most significant thing is that none of the students who went actually had a background in French. That did not detract from their experience. And that was by far the most powerful thing for me, was to see students connect with other students, even though there may have been a language barrier. So I'm hoping that I can share my screen. Do you have to give permission? Yep, and then. Having taught in COVID times.
It's already been 5
Is that
years.
better? Am I okay? Am I echoing or any of those things? Great. So now I can share my screen in theory. All right. Which window is it? My apologies, y'all.
There you go.
Perfect.
Now we got some color.
Yay. That looks so much better.
Yay. Great. Oh, and it's in color too. So again, we had 3 students participate in this experience. It was not an exchange. These 3 students lived in the dorms. And so I want to start with their testimonials. Unfortunately, Stacy Dunham, who is the cosmetology teacher at the HACTC, was unable to attend this evening. And she is regretting that she's not able to be here tonight. But she's the one who helped put together this slideshow. But to me, it's in the words of the students that matter the most. So I'm hoping that the sound will also transmit. Okay, I'm afraid to turn my sound on because I'm worried about feedback. But is that audible?
Too low.
Not sure where it's coming from.
Nick, I wonder if you, like, you know how you go to share your screen? You might have to find it. Like where you go to share screen, I think maybe you can also click like share sound.
Mm-hmm.
That way it doesn't have to be like unmuted like the.
Ring the bell.
They can share their thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So students were living in the dorms, and it was
pretty intense in the beginning. We had students who had never traveled abroad before. We had students who are seasoned overseas travelers. And you sort of end up with that moment of that valley of this is big. But it was incredible to me to see the transformation of these students. And these are not my students. I did not know these students. Again, I teach French at Hartford High. These were not French students. But to see that day when they were able to experience the hands-on relationship of, there was one French girl who had never done French braids. I know that sounds weird. I don't know what, tresse is what they call them in the French. And to have one of our students hands-on show her how to do these braids. And it sounds like a very, it was powerful. And there were tears at the end of this trip when our students said goodbye to their students. And I had an issue with my passport, which is embarrassing to say, but for those of you who travel abroad, might travel abroad, make sure that your passport is valid through the entire trip. Because mine expired the day after we left, which meant that it was going to be expired when we came home. And the dear, sweet gentleman at the Delta counter was like, yeah, you can't go with them. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? So I actually had to send Stacy and these 3 students off to France, none of them really knowing French. And I had to stay home for another 24 hours. And I made it there. And to see photographs of them at the Eiffel Tower, at the Arc de Triomphe, was wonderful, even though I'm sitting in my hotel room the night before, like, oh my God. And they saw the cultural shock that exists. And we had a lot of uncomfortable moments. We had moments where students were served meals. And then I think that, but they powered through, they persisted. And then at the end of the week, to see them in tears, to be giving the French t-shirts from the HACTC and from Hartford High School, and to be sharing parts of us with them. It was in 2019 that we received students from France. We received 3 cosmetology students from France, with 2 teachers who then received us. To be able to participate in that reciprocity was really beyond words. And we are really looking forward to deepening that connection, not only with students, but also with town officials. And we will be extending to you, Mr. Powertalk and Mr. Hoyt, our town manager and the liaison from the select board, to the Sister City Committee, an invitation to come to France in November to be welcomed by town officials. I witnessed firsthand the impact that this visit had on the students. And it may seem like a really small thing, but it's not. In this time when we see a lot of walls, when we see a lot of division, I truly believe that it is through the work of our young people, through the work of our town officials, to really extend a hand to bridge those gaps. And to see it through these students, to see their experience, to see their tears at the end, even though there was this language barrier, to see how, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. To see them go through that adversity, that those moments of challenge when they were crying and wanted to go home. And to see them push through that and to see how it touched them. These students these young adults won't be the same because of this experience. And that's the goal of our committee, is really to bridge these gaps, to create these relationships. The Sister City Committee has a liaison from Hartford High School, Gavin Irish, who is a Hartford High School junior, who is wanting to deepen this connection with schools in France to say, hey, we have this relationship. Let's further this. Let's connect students with students. And so I encourage the select board to review these videos and to know that I was sitting in a hotel room in Cambridge, Massachusetts, waiting for 9 a.m. for the passport office to open so we could get there to them. And then to see their pictures and everything. And to see how touched, how, and I don't mean this to sound bad, but distressed some of these students were to be in an unfamiliar situation, but then to see them at the end of the experience and how it had touched them. And I had the best grades I've ever had in my life. And to see the joy on this, again, this sounds really insignificant, but it wasn't. To see this student who, this French girl who was like, she was beaming. So something as simple as that, to bring our students together, to bring, it was really extraordinary. I encourage the select board, town manager, members of the public, to see the testimonials of these students and just see what it meant to them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. I know it's hard, but it's I think travel under circumstances for young people is just, you know, not everybody has the experience of flying off all the time or going on vacations. I know I experienced that with my daughter at one point where she said, Mom, everybody's going on an exotic trip except me. But to what they go through is really remarkable, and it's educational. And I appreciate, and I have to say, I should have led with this. We appreciate the support of the town of Hartford and the support of the Hartford area Center for the HACTC and Erica Schneider and Stacy to allow this trip to happen. It was an undertaking, but it was. They'll never forget. They won't.
Could I ask you to identify the other members of the committee?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Joan Ponzoni, who is one of our, just raise your hand, like, come on, Joan, just. Yes, thank you, Joan. Who is one of the founding members of the Sister City Committee. She is part of the seed of what exists as this committee now. Laura Cooney, and Pat Cook. I was gonna say Conroy, but Pat has been extraordinary. And so we have the other members of the committee here. So I appreciate all of their work. And I will say, apparently I have a curse with respect to travel, because I actually was not able to travel back to Paris with the group because I left my wallet in the Uber, and then I was like, I'm on the train going back bawling, and I'm like, I am not this kind of person. Oh my God. So they ended up getting to the airport before I did, which maybe I shouldn't have admitted. But I do know how to travel, I promise. But yes, I was grateful to the support of the other members of the committee to allow this trip to happen. I know we have a lot of new members of the select board, so I don't know if you have any questions about our work in the past or our future work or anything connected to that. Any questions?
So I was lucky to see you folks at the block party a few years ago and learn a little bit more about the committee, and I think it's awesome. I'm really glad you guys are doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. So please feel free to check out. I really believe that the student testimonials, that's what it comes down to, is the words of the people.
Can you send that to us at some point?
Yep. It should be in the agenda.
If you'd want to send it again to me, I'll forward it along. Sure.
Fabulous. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we get that PowerPoint with the embedded videos uploaded to the Sister Cities webpage?
Is there such a thing?
I will work to make that happen. But yes, I will talk to Ms. Livingston and
Joanna, I sent you the link to our Facebook page
Oh.
4 weeks ago.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. And again, we do have the opportunity for some of our town officials to head over to France in November.
Merci beaucoup.
Ben, je vous en prie, c'était un plaisir. Et je vous remercie pour le moment de vous parler de notre petit voyage en France.
Magnifique.
À plus.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are ready for the report on feasibility of creating a geothermal energy district in White River Junction.
So my name is Dana Clausen. I'm the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator. This is Jesse Pollard, the Chair of the Energy Commission. And we're here tonight to basically have a lighthearted, big view conversation about geothermal. I just want to say in advance, we recognize that these slides are pretty, there's a lot of dense material in them. The slideshow has been forwarded to all the board, and then I will have it on our website. So don't feel like if you miss something, you know, it will be available. So trying to bring up my screen here. So what we're going to be talking tonight is a network geothermal system. Basically, this is a system that exchanges heat with the ground. Very similar technology to an air source system, except for the condensers in the source of heat and cooling coming from the air. It comes from the ground. People are having more success with these kind of systems because the ground pretty much remains a consistent 55 degrees beneath a certain layer, about 5 feet down. Whereas with air source heat pumps, the colder the air gets, the more heat that's trying to pull out of them, and vice versa. So there's some inherent inefficiencies there. And the district heating part of it just means that one system would have piping that would serve several units around it. We started looking in White River Junction because one of the things you need for a system like this is kind of high density buildings. It'd be challenging to put this, say, somewhere in Wilder or somewhere else where there's nothing really in close proximity.
Not cost effective in rural areas.
Yeah.
Right. And you can think of it similar to like a Green Mountain Power's distribution system for electrons, right? We have transmission high voltage step down to distribution lines that feed commercial and residential businesses. And sometimes those distribution lines are tapped off at a parcel level to serve specific buildings. And then even within the home, further step down to lower voltage. So with a district heating facility, we're actually transporting molecules which transfer heat rather than electrons. And America's been pretty slow to pick up on this technology, though it's been pretty much adopted elsewhere in the world, because we love our natural gas. That's one way to put it. And then the second way is we've been pretty slow to incentivize clean MBTUs or thermal units as opposed to megawatt hours. So over the last 15 years or so, you've probably seen a lot of language about renewable portfolio standards, right? Certain states want to incentivize renewable power, but it's so much easier, especially at the federal level, when you have to assign units of clean energy a certain grant or tax incentive. So easy it is to assign that to a megawatt hour, very much more difficult to do that to a molecule. So with some of the positioning of New England relative to the rest of the US and some, sure. Oh wait, it'll play.
I know, but I don't want to risk having the feedback issue.
Okay, fair. So with the positioning of New England being a little natural gas constrained, there are very, very few natural gas utilities that would provide that heating and power supply service here, unlike elsewhere in the United States. That drives up the cost of heating and the presence of propane and oil for heating in New England more so than other places. Over the last couple of years, I can continue going. Especially in 2023, notably, Vermont kind of moved forward with its yeah, we've had a renewable portfolio standard for electricity for a while, but in 2023, the state moved forward with the Clean Heat Act or Affordable Heat Act, which a lot of people, it's raised some concerns about the affordability of heating their homes and commercial businesses in winter. Meanwhile, we've continued discussions on renewable capacity build out in Vermont, and more, it's the winter peak that is dirtiest, right? Because solar is not going to provide electrons to you, Christmas Eve night when there's a snowstorm and there's no renewable electrons. So that's going to come from natural gas or oil from Boston or Connecticut for the most part. So anyway, we wanted to provide this visual here to kind of expel at a high level perceptions of the renewable energy consumption in Vermont being one of the primary drivers of carbon emissions. The orange in this slide is actually showing fuel use for heating largely. And so probably about 2 years ago, when we first had a lobbyist and a lawyer approach the town of Hartford for what at the time was envisioned to be an opportunity for network geothermal. We pivoted, by we, I mean the Energy Commission, pivoted attention from clean electrons or renewable electrons. For those on the select board who were around at the time, you'll remember there were a lot of solar projects, and we had to figure out the standard permitting process for those. And so we pivoted probably around 2 years ago to starting to address, one, the winter peak. How do we make that clean and affordable for everyone in the town of Hartford? Regional problem, but applied at the local level. And then also, with limited time, we're all volunteers, right? So with limited time, how do we maximize our impact in the efforts of complying with the climate action plan and the ballot measure providing for municipal operation carbon emissions reductions. With that, did I miss anything?
Nope. And then just a little bit more about geothermal and what we're seeing as an opportunity here in White River Junction. We know that there's some redevelopment that's going to be happening downtown, mostly around the Coolidge Hotel. And we've spoken to Mr. Briggs, and we've spoken to some geothermal companies. And basically what we're being told is that, sorry, let me step back. And I'll also recognize that this can be a complicated subject. So if I'm losing anybody, please just don't be afraid to raise your hand or throw something at me. So what we did, we started about 2 years ago, the legislation passed. We continued to started looking for how feasible is this? So in 2022, I applied for technical assistance from the Department of Energy through the C2C program. We did not get that year, but we did get it the following year. And they're the ones who were able to come in, and basically what they did was look at the downtown buildings and be able to tell us.
Yeah, I was about to say, let's jump to the next slide.
Jump to the next slide. Yeah, all the history. So they came in, they did the kind of a technical analysis to say, okay, this is the heating and cooling load for 4 buildings in downtown. This is how much space you have. Yes, indeed, it is feasible for a system like this to operate in downtown White River Junction and to provide heating and cooling to these buildings.
Let's jump back. Let's jump back a little bit to rules of thumb. I want to just kind of cement why this is significant to Hartford, more so than other towns in Vermont and New England, but specifically in Vermont. So just as you're thinking about this, remember that new construction, it's always easier to plan proactively for new construction than try and replace or renovate an old building. A lot of these old buildings, especially at the residential level, the bones were made for a oil furnace or a wood stove. And so with that in mind, these buildings developed out from the center of where a fireplace would be, right? So if you're trying to think about the district heating or ground source heating, even at the building level, suddenly you're going from a centralized heating location, maybe in the center of the building, to now you're going to distribute the heat around the exterior walls on the interior side. And that can be networked very similar to a, what's called when it's electric, baseboard heating. So anyway, greenfielding is a lot more cost effective. And then 2, oftentimes when you have multiple large users that combined can more or less, I don't want to say subsidize, but you can spread out the initial costs of the capital expenditures with more ratepayers or more tenants, more customers. And so that's 2. And the third reason why you might have seen a lot of universities, particularly Dartmouth, Cornell, Princeton jump at this is because there's a longer term return on investment as opposed to a simple boiler. So in return for participating in a networked utility model, heating service, you want to make sure that the customers you're solving for are going to be there 5 years from now or 10 years from now, right? If you are looking at your individual home or business, you're going to get a boiler or furnace or whatever investment you're going to make, and it's going to have a 5 to 7 year payoff. And hey, you might have to replace that in that same number of years, but you can move away from that property fairly easily, right? And so then you're assigning that cost to somebody else if it needs to be renovated. With these district heating facilities, the ROI is closer to a 20-year period. And so universities that are going to be around in 20 years from now, they can more or less rationalize that decision that they're making. So in looking at the town of Hartford and across Vermont, how many pieces of infrastructure come to mind as, hey, that the same owner or the same use case for that building is going to be around in 20 years. And in downtown, or at least in Hartford, our examples are downtown district, right? I wasn't around when the existing Coolidge was constructed, but it's still there, right? And even then, even before the existing infrastructure was in place, it was still a hotel and still a main hub of the downtown area. So that's the second box that is being checked by the downtown district right now. And the third one is oftentimes because the initial capital expenditures is high, it's because you are creating these wells, right? You put cool water down or warm water if it's summertime. And we can more or less equate this to transmission level equipment, the high voltage stuff that transmits electrons. But you can oversize that relatively cost effectively to accommodate new customers down the road. So hypothetically, in downtown White River Junction, we might have Mr. Briggs and the Coolidge redo be an anchor customer, but we, the town or a private partner, could oversize the system such that when Center for Cartoon Studies or Northern Stage hit a point where their existing heating system fails and they're reevaluating their options, they don't have to go out and create even more boreholes so that they could participate in the same facility as well. Those holes would have already been drilled by the initial investors, quite possibly the town, if we want to take that proactive step. Yeah. So that's the third thing that I want you to keep in mind when we're talking about this is we can talk about the entire magnitude of the costs, or we can take it step by step, and we're probably going to have to meet in the middle somewhere. But Hartford, unlike some of our rural communities, pretty well positioned to explore and even contemplate this configuration, just based off being the Brooklyn of Vermont. Right.
Yeah, basically, the overview is Oak Ridge National Lab came in, they did this study, they looked at the 4 buildings. If you look at that study, one of the things to keep in mind is that 2 of those buildings are set to the 1980s code and 2 of them are set to the current code. We just did that to kind of have a comparison. The buildings set to the current code use about 25% of the energy to buildings from 1980 in this modeling. That's just due to poor insulation, air leakage, etc. You would want to upgrade your building before you put in a geothermal system, just because it would be difficult to heat a building set to old code. One of the challenges with the geothermal is that the water only gets up to about 140 as opposed to getting up to 180 from a boiler. So the distribution system needs to be different, and you want to keep that air in there. So if a home or a building owner downtown did want to switch to the system, it would be on them to upgrade their buildings and get the system installed. But basically, the big takeaway was with the Oak Ridge study that they found that yes, this is feasible. And then in the past couple of weeks, it's been speaking to a couple different companies, one of which said that they think that it'd be potentially worth their while to install a system like this if they could get the new hotel to be a anchor customer, and then they would just build it out and potentially have other buildings add on as they aged out, as they changed out their heating systems, as they updated.
Yeah, and then the significance of this moment is going back in time 2 years ago, we tried having these conversations with some of the same private entities, and they said, well, talk to us when it's legal. Because in Vermont, we're a Dillon state, right? So unless it's specifically prescribed in state law that a town has a right to do something, then it's assumed we don't actually have the right to do it. And so last year was the year that we focused on getting that state law passed. Thanks to our elected representatives, it did. And now there's no question at all that the town of Hartford can pursue something like this. And whether or not we do that ourselves or with a private financier or owner operator, there's language in that law for both scenarios. So we feel comfortable moving forward legally. We now have the feasibility study from Oak Ridge National Labs, which to the critical eye doesn't seem substantive or complete. But though the nature of those conversations cut short a little bit, that's the world we live in. We're positive, supportive, and validated in nature. And so combined with the legality, the feasibility study from Oak Ridge National Lab, we feel politically confident that this is something we can recommend the select board pursue and endorse, whether or not with Mr. Briggs and Adam through the lens of their new development or through a more independent public power municipal corporation, I believe is the word, entity here in Hartford that would be more publicly sponsored. The last slide in that presentation deck we sent out more or less detailed out how we imagine it happen. I think relative to other towns, we are well positioned with our resources, our current town manager and staff in pursuing, if we so wanted to, the more utility model that would require significant upfront legal costs on figuring out how to do it for the first time, seeing that it's never been done in the state of Vermont. But then how are we going to finance it? So I suspect, given the political situation of where America's economy is and where the federal funding may be or may not be, private capital might be what we're looking at. And so I would imagine the town of Hartford would strike a role balancing the role of the developer with the creativity of what could be a public-private partnership. And there's an element of urgency here before I pause for questions. Mr. Briggs and Adam are representing that the second floor of the Briggs building, which was previously leased by the state, will be retrofitted for residential use, August-September timeframe. And the decisions that they make on how to heat that space or renovated spaces, they would like to be informed based off the existence or likely existence of a geothermal district. That sets our timeline for formalizing this a little bit more, from more of like a year concept to much more married and informed by the direction Briggs and Adam go.
Yeah, but with that development, they could probably put something in there that they could hook up.
Yeah,
have a source not be the ground source or the geothermal system until it's available. Yeah. So I know we kind of went kind of deep on that. Other questions?
I think people aren't quite sure what to ask.
Right.
Ashley.
I have some questions. I just had I'm first of all super excited about this initiative. I have a few questions. One of them is, where is Dartmouth at with their? I know they were looking at instituting a.
They
whole
are.
district.
If you drive through Hanover, you'll see a lot of big holes and a lot of equipment.
That's what
So they are. That is going to actually be a 10 to 20 year project that they're just going to keep adding on to.
Because they have to retrofit existing buildings.
They have to
right?
retrofit a lot of existing buildings. I've asked Marcus Walker, their Assistant Director of Sustainability, if he could provide some numbers of how much of that 500 million that they've decided to put towards that is going towards retrofits versus how much is actually going towards the hardware. And he basically told me that there's so many people involved, he can't get that answer. They're
Total cost of our district will be a lot less than that.
yes.
Yeah.
We're not looking at 500 million. Yeah, Oak Ridge thought it would be around 6 million, maybe to 8 million, and then EcoSmart Solutions, a private firm that I spoke with last week, they were estimating they could do it for 5 because of it really depends on their drilling technology.
And also, where does their ownership end and where does the customer start?
Yeah.
Right? And then that's a whole financial piece that will require participation from existing neighbors that we haven't been able to incorporate yet.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's just great as a resource that project is happening right across the river.
Yeah, and they're happening ahead of us enough that if they make a mistake, we'll know about it and avoid it.
Great. One of my other questions was just about repair and maintenance. As I'm trying to myself like visualize this system, do these kinds of systems often, are they harder to maintain because to get to components you have to dig pretty deep underground?
Well, what's going underground is the piping, but the actual pumps and stuff like that would be accessible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not any different than like water lines or any
No,
other
and
like
it's-
conduit that we have buried and wires that are underground. Like
So Vermont Gas Services is starting to explore geothermal. I have the name in your packet of the housing development that they're doing. Heinsberg, I think is where it is.
okay, yeah, I saw that.
And basically what they said was, it's pretty much the same pipe. We've got the drilling technology. We're good at this. So it's what they know. It's just going down a bit deeper than they do for gas pipes.
It's similar to like distribution lines, right? Like, you have trees knock those over, sure, it's more accessible, but they're gonna get knocked over more because they're not underground.
Right.
So you'll see a lot of utilities in cities actually pursue burying them, especially with respect to climate change and fires, right? So buried is generally better. The life cycle is it's longer. I'm forgetting the lifetime.
Yeah, I think it's probably at least 20 years, but then most of what's going to change, what you're going to need to change out is the moving parts, not necessarily the piping. So you're not going to have to dig under the ground every 20 years to redo pipes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, last question I had. Well, I guess this is a 2-part question. One of them is what does the timeline, I don't remember what the timeline on the Briggs project looks like, but what is the timeline on this in your perspective? And then also given, I saw like 2 of the funding possible grant sources that were in the presentation, page not found any longer on whitehouse.gov. So like, is this project far enough out that in 4 years or 3 years, there may be more grant funding? Should we just count that like there's probably not going to be any federal funding available for this kind of project?
So there was an interesting conversation with EcoSmart where we had talked about going for congressionally directed spending. And their response was, don't do that because that would mess up our financial models because they're getting rebates and incentives from that.
They are getting some sort of.
Yeah, or they were. I mean, I don't really know now.
Okay.
Tarot cards.
Right, all this is moving, right? What's happening at the federal government is moving, so the answer we give you now might be different next week.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I asked about timeline bundled with that.
Well, and also there's a big part, in my mind, there's a big part of, we would want to time this with the renovation of the hotel, because there's going to be a lot of big holes going on downtown. And,
Absolutely.
I don't want people to get that mad at us, and have dig up the downtown twice.
And do you know what their timeline is for like demo?
Oh, they would love to be. You might know.
I think the answer is stay tuned. We're going to hear much more from David Briggs and Adam in the coming weeks.
Okay.
But on that last one about incentives, as it stands right now, tax incentives that are mandated by the law, Inflation Reduction Act, they have a lot more legal standing and certainty behind them. Granted, take it with a grain of salt, but that this technology should be receiving those funds. Geothermal, granted, we're talking about district heating, but I'm going to put it under the geothermal umbrella, is one of those things that the current DOE and administration support as its firm capacity, and they're looking for that for data centers and whatnot.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much.
I'd like to just say a couple of words in praise of Dana and Jesse and the Energy Commission and others for spending so much time looking at the feasibility here and working with the folks at Oak Ridge. I attended some of those Oak Ridge meetings, and it's truly mind-blowing, the assemblage of intellectual firepower. Really incredible. So just thank you for all that you've done and are doing.
Really appreciate it. Brandon?
Thanks. Speaking of the tenuous nature of federal grants at this time, I think now is as good a time as any to ask John and or Dana whether there's any knowledge of any grants that the town had confirmed approval of, but not yet received at this time. I've heard of other locales in the country having confirmed things and then being told, no, sorry, it's not happening.
I have not. I don't know whether Lori, for example, has heard of any grants that we were awarded where we've been told they're not going to be funded.
The question was grants that we've been awarded, but that we don't have the money from yet.
Right. Oh, yet.
Yeah.
That is the case with one of our historic preservation grants. Currently, that's the only one we've been informed about.
The Nevi chargers.
Yeah.
Got canceled. I also have a energy efficiency block grant, which is a grant that we got for about $75,000. 2 years ago, the Department of Energy said, if you're going to if you're going to less than $250,000, go for a voucher system. So you spend the money and then you apply for reimbursement. I was a little nervous. I was going to use those funds for the ice rink. I was a little nervous because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I held off. And then with the change of administration, about 3 days after the change, I attended a webinar on reporting and getting reimbursement. And it was supposed to start at 2:00, and at 2:03, a little window popped up and said, this meeting's been canceled. So, and people in the chat box said, are we getting reimbursed? It was like, so we've avoided getting stuck in those pitfalls just because I was trying to be cautious. But those are the two things that come to mind that I've been juggling with.
All right. Well, thanks for that update. I had one more question, which was in the PowerPoint from Dana and or Jesse. It describes incremental development, and that's kind of explained as basically oversizing this system to allow for more buildings to join the network as they are able, since obviously it's on them to alter their buildings to accept that energy source.
I don't think we want to be having the same conversation 5 years from now when Northern Stage sees a massive reading.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a great idea. I mean, the question is more of specifics, whether there's been any kind of visioning done as to how big we would try to build it. How many more tons or how many more buildings would we try over what we're initially going for? Would we try to build the system, or at least try to drill such that we could, get the machinery later?
We certainly, I'm sorry, I'll just start it off by saying with the Oak Ridge folks, the 60 hours that we were given of their time only allowed for an analysis, I think, of the 4 nearest buildings. We did have internal conversations of how far down that road and into the downtown could we take this, and maybe that's where you can jump in.
Yeah, and I think what it'll ultimately depend on is how we fund this. If it's a private entity, they'll probably have some thoughts and feelings on how far they're willing to go down. I think you basically would be laying a couple of mains, so it wouldn't be a huge investment for them, say, to run just the pipes with the anticipation that somebody's going to connect to those in the future. But that's still there's a lot still to muddle through.
There's also a factor of how big the field is, how many wells are drilled.
Yeah.
If the wells are 450 feet deep each, it's just a question of the number of wells.
We found that the Y, I'm gonna call it the Y or the triangle across the roadway. There's state-owned land over there in between all the railroad tracks. And that by itself would be adequate for what was studied. And, you know, you start doing the math on where else could you drill, and there's not a whole lot of other places downtown, right? We have a parking lot that was considered, we have below the Coolidge, that's a top candidate, minimally disruptive. We have not been able to get the state of Vermont to respond about a lease for that property across the railroad tracks. The second element of the question, right? How do you plan for the magnitude or scope? Well, what happens if we're geothermally constrained, but we want to explore commercial grade heat pumps in another sense? So that took us down to a conversation with a wastewater heat pump manufacturer that remains really excited about the concept of pairing the district heating facility partially using the geothermal resource, but also with a wastewater heat transfer technology that could be planted right in existing or adjacent to existing wastewater pumps or pipes.
Yeah, but I think ultimately, you know, when we got down to it and figuring out how we did this, likely we'd go with a private firm, but, you know, we put out an RFP and they probably have some different ideas. They probably all have different ideas about how to engineer stuff.
And that's part of the value I see of the town taking some significant of a role in this, is that if we put out an RFP, we're going to get maybe geothermal specialists who only view it from a geothermal lens. And we might get another manufacturer of, you know, heat pumps using wastewater who only see it through their lens. And you might meet somebody that match makes, I believe Eric, I saw an email where you use that term. And we marry the two technologies together. And we're in a role to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Ashley?
Another question. I guess I'm trying to wrap my mind around if it were a private company that were to do the project, is the way that the rate for the residents, would that be set based on the upfront cost, or how do they set their rates?
That's a great question, because this isn't a fuel, like you can't measure what's going in there.
Right.
It's a BTU. So it'd probably be some kind of maybe possibly a subscription fee based, where your unit is a subscriber based on the number of square footage, you pay X amount. But I mean, this is something that there's still a lot of conversations going on how to work that out. And again, I'm sure like with the design of the system, there's probably a bunch of different fee structures.
And that's part of the reason why the Coolidge redo is going to be an interesting guinea pig for how to take a look at the broader picture. There's some legalese out there that, you know, puts caps on or controls based off ownership. So if it's private, then that's going to be interrogated by the PUC. If it's public and we're able to have that conversation in here, then that's our job to make sure that tenants don't get exploited, essentially.
Yeah. But I mean, this is still a work in progress. You know, tonight was more about updating you all in the community on this project, because obviously it's kind of a big, complicated thing, and we made it kind of understandable.
A lot of this conversation, one, sure, it was bottlenecked because it wasn't technically legal, but two, Hartford is in an incredibly privileged position with our town staff that's able to resource this. Us volunteers would be lost without these two. So,
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is a lot of depth, but still fascinating.
A lot of depth. Get it? Because it's a well.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I didn't do that on purpose. Okay. Any other? Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will say that, you know, this project makes a lot of sense. Thermodynamically, it makes sense. It's cheap thermodynamically. It makes sense from an economy of scale perspective. I mean, those are the two key factors in a system like this. And it makes sense from an emissions standpoint, most likely. That said, I'm eagerly awaiting some concrete details or direction on the commercial arrangement side of things. In an ideal world, the town would take the town would be the convener I think I used the term midwife as well to birth this thing. But not knowing more, that's just my sort of aspiration. And the reason for that is because there are a lot of other opportunities. And so this comes down to every decision where we're capacity constrained and we have more than one option. We have, opportunity costs, trade-offs. And there are a lot of other things to be done. Transportation, for example. If we look at that sector, we can say that from an emissions reduction standpoint, which isn't the only, the only part of the equation here, 2,500 households, if they saved or omitted burning 17 gallons of gas a year, it's the same amount of emissions reduction. Mm-hmm. So for us as a town, we just have a lot of other things that we could do. And so I think that in an ideal world, we're coaxing the private sector to lean in more but with an eye toward the future, making sure that it's still affordable over the long term for building owners, for building occupants and so on. So I should have started by saying thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks for all the work that you've been doing over the past several years. And I think that's I'll leave it at that. I look forward to the next round of details.
Response if I can. I think that's what makes Vermont gas so interesting, is that they're an existing utility for natural gas. They are familiar with the PUC regulations. They have a vested interest in diversifying into a district heating facility. So they're not the only private entity, but they're a very local, regional subject matter expert that I see.
Yeah, but I mean, it gets complicated really quick, because talking to VGS the other day, they said, well, we're a rate-based utility. We don't have access to cheap capital. So building a system like this is out of their hands, whereas the private developers can get cheaper capital. And it's just, there's a lot to it, but we're muddling through it. And I think doing a pretty good job of keeping our heads above water.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank
you. All right.
All right.
Thanks. So next up is the Housing and Homelessness Committee update on rental housing inventory. Actually, would you mind give us 5 minutes to take a break so people can go to the bathroom or whatever? We'll be back at 5 minutes and about 7 minutes till.
You kept it on the highway. Nice work.
Well, good for reminding us. For Housing and Homelessness Committee update of rental housing inventory.
Yes. So I'm Lexi Webster, the new Housing and Development Specialist. Just in case you forgot from last time, I'm still very new. So the point of this rental inventory survey is really to get like a qualitative snapshot of available rental housing in the town of Hartford and how much it costs. It is not uncommon that even data sets that are a couple years old, that's not very relevant to what you see on the rental market right now in the time frame. So this is really just to get a current snapshot. And on the property owner survey, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but the links at the very end of the survey, I know on the version you got, it looked like there was one link that was not in English, just all kinds of random things. I'm not sure why that happened when it went from Word to PDF, but it is good on my end, and we will make sure when we send it out and get it online that it is the correct link. I don't know why that happened, so I apologize. And then at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our chair, John Hafner, to go into more detail about the surveys.
Hi, everybody. Is this even on?
Yeah.
Feels very, very formal. I'm John Hafner. I'm the chair of the Hartford Committee on Housing and Homelessness. And just to provide a little bit of background and a little bit more information and part of the rationale and thinking behind this rental inventory survey. This idea came out of conversations that the Housing Committee was having during the development of the current draft housing chapter for the town plan. And in it, we identified that this could be a role that we could serve as a housing committee to go out and collect more information that wasn't available and wasn't able to be included in that housing draft. Because as Lexi was referring to, there is some existing data sets that you can pull from state and national housing costs, but they don't quite get granular, and they might be often outdated because of the turnover time that it takes to get at them. And as we know, this has been a pretty volatile housing market over the last few years. And through various discussions, we sort of landed on this as an option for both collecting data that we don't have currently, as well as building relationships with landlords and property managers to get a better understanding of what it is that they are sort of seeing within their own housing stock. And then we had one of our members had actually a great last minute idea of why don't we actually do targeted outreach to renters as well, because they possess similar information, at least knowing how much they pay in rent, maybe more so than the property owners themselves. So we have now these two surveys that can help augment some of the larger data sets that we have available, and hopefully shine some more light on what are the current cost burdens for, in particular, renters within the town of Hartford. And then I'll also just sort of provide that some of this information, or some of this, the motivation and inspiration for this came from New Hampshire Housing does an annual residential rental survey that's statewide, and they have rental information for Grafton County, in which it's shown dramatic increases in rents. So some of those maybe also will be seeing here in Hartford as well, that are not being captured necessarily in the statewide data that is being collected by Vermont Housing Finance Authority. And that Vermont Housing Finance Authority tends to be I think it's a 3-year turnaround in terms of when they do their surveys. So wanting to try to, and the way that New Hampshire Housing has done this is to, again, build relationships with residential property management companies and landlords to do anonymous data collection and collate that into their their sort of trends that they're seeing in the residential market. So if we could kind of figure out how to do that on a smaller scale within the municipality and compare it to some of the other existing data sets, I think it could round out our understanding of where we've actually seen the rental market going. It probably won't be a shock to many people that I'm anticipating that it's, we'll learn a lot about how cost burden in particular renters are within the town of Hartford. But I think even if we just sort of confirm our assumptions, confirming it in a really informed way will allow us to, I think, come up with some strategies for how to approach the issue moving forward.
You want some discussion now?
Yeah, just, I don't know if Lori or Lexi, anybody wants to
Lexi?
add?
No, I think the main point of discussion is just to get your all's feedback, any questions you have, and kind of get last minute details worked out before we release it.
John?
I'll just ask a question which some people at home might be wondering about. And so I'm just hoping you can put the kibosh right away on it. Is this a rental registry?
No. No, this
Can
is
you
a-
distinguish it?
Yeah, it's an inventory of rental information that we're just using to understand what the rental market is, but it's not going into any kind of registry. It's just information.
Understood.
We have available to.
Thank you.
That's actually close to my question, which was how will you store and present the data that you find? Like, will it be in a giant Excel sheet, or yeah, what is the keeping of all this data look like?
I mean, I think that's a really good question that would be great to have some feedback on for how best to represent this. I mean, I think that having something a little bit more visual than just a gigantic spreadsheet that can show something that can be incorporated into maybe a final housing chapter within the town plan would be useful, and something that we could share more readily available with people. So, but I think that right now we haven't really thought for that stage yet for how to disseminate the information and how to present it, but something more visually appealing.
Yeah.
I think that probably.
I mean, I could add that, I've thought a little bit about this too. How can we do this in a way that's respectful of the information that we've received, recognizing it is a volunteer a survey and wanting to do some representation of it. So graphics to me would be, you could take the town and break it up into zones or something, and you can represent that with colors and something that might talk about this data sets that we have and those things that we want to bring forward, and always have the data as backup, to get into it more granularly. But, it's really to also not only look at what we know, but where is it happening? One of the things that we do have as a data set is our grand list that tells us, for example, that this building here and here and here may have X number of apartments in them. But we don't know what the rents are necessarily in those areas. We don't know whether they're fully occupied, those kinds of things. And it also doesn't tell us how it is distributed in a visual way across, with that additional information across the town. Are we underutilizing some of our areas in which we could increase the opportunities for rental housing? Or are we overly stocked in some areas, but we know we still have a demand for that in some areas? How does it relate to what we consider our village centers and where the concentration is closest to our amenities and public transit? All of those are the kinds of things that I think we can then start to look at. What makes sense for areas that we should focus some more attention on? How does that relate to our existing zoning that we have within those areas and so forth? So,
thank you. And then my last two questions are, what is the time period that you expect to be collecting answers to the survey? And do you have kind of an approach you plan to take on outreach to get folks to fill it out?
Yeah, so I would appreciate any feedback on what you feel like is a good amount of time for the survey. Obviously, I feel like at least a couple months would be great, but we do need to have a set deadline. I was discussing this with our media specialist. If you need more responses, you can always go back and say, hey, we're reopening this. Here's the new deadline, something like that. But we do need to have a set deadline established. So I would appreciate any feedback on that. And we also plan to, we're going to have hard copies like you saw in your packets, going to different places and distributing those to property owners and renters. We're also going to have an online version where the first question will ask you, are you a property owner or renter? And then based on what you put, it will populate with that equivalent survey. And then we are also going to make QR codes. So, to put around places in town, they're, areas that are frequently visited. And so people can just do that on their phone and not even have to go to the town website and find the survey. So that's kind of some ideas so far.
And when you mention going to places and distributing it, does that mean that you guys will like canvas, just go out, pick a neighborhood, or yeah, I'm just curious about that approach, which I think is the best approach.
Yeah, that's about how we'll hopefully leverage the volunteer power of the community to do that. I think it'll be something that will suit our team to kind of just go out and do some sort of canvassing style stuff, do direct outreach to those that might not be able to serve their town website or something.
Questions?
Yeah, just to sort of follow up on that topic of like dissemination and sort of getting people, I mean, you were mentioning on the New Hampshire side, the importance of like partnerships and relationships with landlords to kind of create that buy-in and that type of process. And that does seem like really crucial, especially with an audience that might be a little bit skeptical of like, why are you asking me to share this information? So I don't know, I guess that's, I don't know if it's really a question. I'm sure you do have relationships. I know Lori, I'm sure does, with sort of developers and people in town who are, you know, own some of the larger buildings. And to like, yeah, I guess, you know, to encourage you to like lean on those relationships to try to like create some buy-in. If there could be like a, you know, open, I don't know. I don't know exactly what it would look like, but I think you understand sort of what my recommendation is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's the process in and of itself of doing the outreach creates buy-in, and then it also creates an opportunity for everybody to kind of have a bit of a shared understanding of what's going on. So I think that this is a good, you know, the housing committee has done some outreach in general, but sometimes if you don't really have a particular vehicle for that outreach, it's kind of just a like, hey, how are you doing? What do you have?
Yeah.
But if there's actually a purpose and an intention behind it, then I think it actually can land better and can actually build a more solid relationship. So I think that using this survey as a vehicle for building relationships with landlords and property managers, it will be, I think, useful in and of itself, and should also get us some good information as well.
Definitely, yeah. And then just one thought following on that, like one possible avenue, like I think a good practice with this type of survey is to like test it out. I think it's wonderful you're asking us for feedback, but like, you know, even better is ask feedback from the type of people that you're wanting to complete it. So that could be another like bridge building, like, hey, can we sit down? You know, you own property in town. I really want your feedback on the language, how this is wording. How can we make it more welcoming, inviting to people who are asking to take this? So if before you finalize it, yeah, you could do that with people, both sides, both types of participants that you're looking to engage. That could be just helpful for data collection, and then also just helpful with that partnership piece. Yeah.
Miranda? I have a few thoughts, so bear with me. If you're leaving, I think a good idea might be like leaving these in places where people are often kind of like just sitting around, like maybe like a Putnam's or a Wolf Tree, something like that, and like maybe leaving an envelope with the staff there to like collect them back. I don't know, that was just a thought. Other thoughts, I'm wondering if there's like like you suggested, Ida, like potentially on the survey itself, asking for feedback on the survey. So like, were there any points of confusion for you? What additional information should we have asked for, like that you think might be important? Yeah, things like that. Also wondering, I didn't see it on the renters survey, but were you planning to ask about their income? Because I'm wondering like how we could show like the cost burden.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that, but that's a good point, because then you could be able to actually tell if they're cost burdened based on what they make.
Because we sort of have that I think in more of the just area median income kind of level, but getting that if people are willing to share.
Yeah. And then my last thing was, I know on the property owner survey, it asks about being short-term rentals being registered with the state. Will that be, I'm assuming that's not going to be reported back to the state, whether or not they're registered. Like if they say no, I'm like, my property's not registered.
Yeah, I don't know.
We
what
don't do that piece of it.
Okay.
That's a state thing.
I just wonder if there should maybe be a disclaimer then, because people might not be
Yeah.
willing to tell the truth, that they're like, they're gonna rat me out. Like,
Yeah.
Especially because you'll have like their address and their name. And,
Are you required to report rental properties to the state?
I think short term.
Oh, short term.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
the
gotcha.
landlords are required, or the property owners are required to register as a short-term rental.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a really good point, Miranda. I
But
think that might scare some folks off.
Yeah,
I mean, they might not tell the truth anyway. If they know
well, so
that
that's
they're-
part of it, because if somebody has not done that, they're probably not going to answer that
Right,
question.
yeah, right.
But then
And yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
it could discourage them from turning in the survey altogether, though, because then if you don't answer the question, that's kind of an implication that it's a no.
Well, no, I mean, but you could assume that somebody just skipped over it because it isn't short-term rental.
True,
You know,
true. Okay,
so, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I engage.
Yeah, I think it does speak to the, you know, there, you could consider some language at the top, and again, asking for feedback on this from like, you know, relevant stakeholders, but around like the degree of confidentiality of the answers. And that sort of speaks to Ashley's question of where is this gonna live? But you know, if it's accurate, you could say like, you know, your answers will be confidential. We're gonna combine them with other answers when we report the results. You won't be identified to whatever degree you're, you know, that's true.
It does put our department in a little bit of a quagmire, because if we are aware of a code violation for the town, we do need to follow up on it. We can't ignore it.
Right, but that's different than.
We were trying not to get into that level of disclosure if someone felt uncomfortable about it. Because if, as you know, if we are aware of somebody having a short-term rental in some place, or using, you know, their RV for more than 14 days a year or something like that as a short-term rental, you know, so that's why we kind of avoided some of those things that would flag it. But at the same time, you know, we're hoping we can, you know, be respectful of that privacy. But
Right.
We have some obligations as a town agency.
Yeah, and I think there's ways to wordsmith it. I
Right,
mean, by
that's-
saying like, you know, outside the staff of the town and the committee, your identity won't be revealed or whatever. I mean, there's different ways to word it, but, and then also, I mean, another way that you could like, you know, bolster confidence or trust is by saying like, you know, you can, the questions are optional. You can skip any
Yes,
question that
they
you
may
wish to.
decide
You
not to
can-
answer one of the questions, and that may be the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Too. But
Yeah, because obviously if somebody's filling it out, you can skip anything, but we need to make sure the online version, nothing is really mandatory. You know, like everything is an optional if you want to answer.
I'll add to maybe even making that like really clear in the instructions too. I just worry that people will get to a question that makes them uncomfortable and just close out of the
Stop,
whole thing,
yeah.
and throw it in the trash. But if you like maybe like make it very clear, like skip whatever you don't want to answer, then it will maybe encourage them to continue.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. But
Because yeah, at least we're getting some data at that point. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Sorry, I do a lot of survey design, but I mean, another strategy is to put more sensitive questions at the end of the survey. So if they do decide to bail, you've already gotten a lot of information. And like, we do that sometimes with like demographic questions. People don't always want to answer, you know, race, gender, but we just put them at the end and say, you know, and they know at the beginning that every question's optional.
Okay. I was wondering if there's a way to, you know, maybe they would accept some questions if, you know, if you keep coming up with some ideas to help them with their survey, that maybe you could
contact us directly.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think
very much.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
fair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think my fellow board members have covered it pretty well. I was just going to respond to the question that John had about other things that we can think of to put on the survey. And Lori started going through a process of just sort of asking questions that might be asked in the future. And I don't know if the committee and the staff has done that in a sort of formal fashion of just itemizing all of these are the questions that we hope to answer 2 years from now.
Right.
And then going back and then looking at the survey and seeing, have we captured, or will we capture data to be able to facilitate answering those questions. It's just sort of an exercise. If you haven't already done that, it could be useful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, John. Thanks, Lexi.
Thank you guys for doing this. This is great.
Appreciate it. Okay, we can move on then to the town parking lot at Pine and Maple.
We have two, well, I'm not sure if they're showing up on the, but there should be two individuals, Brian Waxler and Drew Waxler. I had it on my head. So if they're there, you would just allow them to be
Drew and who else?
presenter. Drew and
Brian
Waxler.
Brian, yeah.
Okay, they're so I just want to give you a brief overview of why we're here today to talk about some of the future use or continuation of a use of a parking lot. It doesn't have a real distinguishing name at this point, and we're really identifying it as that parking lot that sort of surrounds the co-op, and it's at the corner of Pine Street and Maple, and then going out. That property does house the co-op, and there is actually a dividing line in the building itself that you don't know what is one, but they're two separate property owners there actually. And then a third, if you look at the building that used to be the bank building that's in the front. So the area we're talking about is a parking lot that really does, and I was intending to send something out to you, and I apologize for not doing that, but you can just pass this around and you can look at the area that is in yellow, and that is the boundary of the area that we're talking about right now in terms of the parking area. It's pretty much everything if you're facing the co-op, it's everything on the right-hand side of the co-op. Is predominantly the parking lot that we're talking to as it goes over to Pine Street and comes over to Maple Street, and then borders on the boundary with the school district. So in that regards, it is something that is been used since 2009 in a very formal way, but before 2009 in a very informal way to service the grocery stores that have been for many, many, many years in what is now occupied by the co-op. That is something that was established in a formal way in 2009 for a 15-year period. And excuse me, in 2009, and then in 2015 for a 5-year period. Excuse me. In 2014, that was reissued again, and that is something that very much in the interest of wanting to continue to provide the opportunity for parking that historically has gone along with which now is the only grocery store servicing the town of Hartford. It is something that probably many of you have never even understood about what the content of that means, and that is under a term known as a non-exclusive revocable license. Now, I had to teach myself what that meant too in the course of all of this, but basically the essence of that is that it gives a license to the property owner to use that for the business within that building. Currently, it's tied to it being used as a grocery store. And it also was put in place to ensure that there would be the continuation of a grocery store there when the PNC left. And that was really the genesis behind it in the first stage of putting it into a formal licensing agreement. That non-exclusive is just what it says. It's non-exclusive. It means it's not just for their use, but it's open to the whole public, and also will be used by the co-op or whatever grocery store is in there, in that building,
to further the use of it by the community. It's recognizing that a grocery store is a very important asset for a community. Having that as a grocery store is something that the additional reason for coming before you tonight to extend that revocable non-exclusive licensing going beyond the 20-year period that it currently has, which means it would be up in, originally it's 20 years, which would have been 2034, but now they're asking for it to come before you for consideration to extend that to 2054. And the reason behind that is looking at the future needs for expansion and growth of that grocery store. So at this juncture, we started looking into that several months ago and have explored different ways in which to express that. What is missing from that agreement currently that needs to be looked at. One of the things I recognize is that there really wasn't anything built into that agreement for an annual sit down amongst all the parties to say, okay, how's this going? Do we have things that are happening on the property in terms of maintenance that need to be addressed? Oh, one thing I wanted to note was also in exchange for that use of the lot is that the property owner has taken over the responsibility for maintaining it. So that's looking at adequate paving, if there's need for restriping, at times it's looked at lighting and so forth. So there's the things that are all part of it. And we need to have a check-in once a year now that's being written into the agreement. Also looking a little bit more about how the use of that would happen going forward if the a co-op were to expand into other areas on that site or adjacent to it. How would that be done? Because that would trigger off the need for a site plan review process. And so we built that very clearly into the agreement as well. So there are representatives here from the two different entities. The property owner is St. Albans Shopping Center, or SASCI, and they are here, and that would be Brian and Drew Waxler. And we also have representation here from the co-op, which is Amanda, Charlene, and Bruce Follett right here as well. I'm going to step back a little bit and let them talk through what their interests are in this, because this is a proposal that they're bringing before you, and I have been facilitating that discussion for your future consideration. Once they're done, I'd want to just also go over what the next steps would be if this is something you want to consider. So at that, are we going to jump in here with Bruce and Brian? Excuse me, with Brian and Drew? Are you online?
Lori, I am. This is Drew Waxler. My dad couldn't make it tonight, so it's just me.
Do you want to offer up any points that I may not have covered, or things that you want to make sure that they're aware of?
Well, I want to thank you, Lori, for your introduction. I think you did a great job summarizing. So we own, or our company represents the landlord that owns the parcel that currently houses the co-op, and we are looking to extend that lease with the hopes of being able to purchase the neighboring property and expand the co-op into that property. But before we do that, we need to ensure that we can provide adequate parking for the customer base of the co-op. And so we've already negotiated an agreement with the co-op, but we can't fully execute that until we have come to an agreement with the town, allowing us to make use of that parking lot for the entirety of the lease term.
Good question. Yes, go ahead, Ida.
Hi, thanks for joining us and for sharing that information. I'm just, so when you're the planned expansion or that you're hoping to do, is that what property are you referring to? Is it the rest of the building that the co-op is in? Or is it another?
Yes, yes. So it's the pharmacy, and I'm forgetting the other uses currently owned by Flanagan family. There is a current potential environmental issue that is the primary holdup. So we're pending a final exploration of whether or not there truly is a need for environmental rehabilitation on the site. We have essentially built into the lease amendment, that if that property comes available, we will revisit the lease and work to expand our ownership and the co-op's leased space.
Okay. And then the existing parking lot that you're hoping to extend the agreement around, that would be sufficient parking for your, for this potential expansion of the store?
We haven't done a full review of that. It's a little premature, but that's to be determined.
Okay. Okay.
And if I could just clarify on that, those are points that would be looked at very extensively through the site plan approval process and would be subject to the planning commission review and approval of that. And those are things that were built into the current addendum.
I see. So yeah, this is sort of, there's a lot of unknowns and variables that we don't know how they're going to settle out. And this is like an early step of a hurdle that has to be crossed in order for some of those other pieces to be more clear. Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
I had a question or comment. My name is Mary. And I've heard this from the Conservation Commission. And I noticed that I think Eric on the board had some questions about this. Is there any possibility, and I know it might impinge on parking, any possibility of being able to plant some trees in some of the areas? I know the reason I'm bringing into the Conservation Commission because at the one end where the school property goes, the electricity, they cut down trees because it was in their right of way. And so there was big concern that they've lost shade and, beautifying that area. I don't know if this is in anybody's interest, but I know that that was a comment that has been made to me, and I don't know where you stand on that, but I thought I'd just throw it out.
So if I can answer that from a review process, Drew may have more to add to that. Landscaping, as many other things on the site, are part of a site improvement plan. Even if they were to come into us today, they would have to get an amendment to their plan to do tree planting. It may be done administratively because it may be considered a minor change, but certainly if it goes before the planning commission for any kind of a major change to the site, we would be looking at landscaping as a component of that, even if it was not proposed. That being said, this is a time that if you felt it was a strong component for you in order to go to this 20-year extension, that this would be a time for you to say, well, whatever you are proposing in your future renovations to the site, please make sure you include X, Y, or Z.
Miranda?
We have two comments online.
Go ahead.
Right, Heidi, go ahead.
Good evening. This is Heidi Duto from White River Junction. I've been bringing up some concerns of Hartford property being used by private citizens, and this is a business for their own personal use. My question is are we actually, and I have multiple questions within this one question, are we actually gaining any income from this property to go towards the offset of tax payers funding to run the town?
Lori?
Well, one of the things I can offer up as an explanation for compensation is that the co-op or the property owners take on the full responsibility for maintenance of the parking lot, which it can amount to quite a bit of money over the course of time. So that could be annual painting, it's putting in lights, it's putting in landscaping and maintaining it, it's repaving, patching. They've had to do, digging up areas, and at one point they actually had to put in a stormwater drainage system. So there's a lot of expenditures and responsibilities that they have. It also includes snow clearance. They have to maintain insurance. I mean, there's a lot of different components of this that actually are expenditures on their part that in the past, it has been looked at as adequate compensation for their use of it. And to keep in mind that this is not something that is exclusive to them. It's an open public parking lot and anyone can park there. I know that the school parks there, people from the Montessori school park there, and it's been used as a parking lot when we have events over at Town Hall. So it's not giving up the use, but it's also at the same time, with them putting the financial investment on maintaining it, it's also recognizing that having a dedicated parking area, not exclusive, but one that is going along with the area surrounding them, is a tremendously important asset to have in order for us to have a community shopping area for ourselves as a community. Not having a grocery store in a community is a very, from an economic perspective, not a good thing. So
that really didn't answer my question. Are we gaining capital funding towards our town expenses to run the town?
I can't say that I've done an analysis of that, but there seems to, that would be something the select board should let me know if there's something more you need on that.
So
I think the question is there a monthly or yearly rental payment coming from the co-op to the town?
There is not, and that was done in exchange for the financial investments. Yeah.
So one more question, if I may. Why are we not just selling this piece of property to the property owner of the building then? Why are we even having any hands in? Because that would get us more tax money to set off our budgets every year.
Well, what I can say is that maintaining it as a public lot, that the town does not have to incur the expenses for ongoing maintenance of this site, allows it to continue to be open to the general public as opposed to being a private parking lot. That's how I have viewed it, but I don't know if you agree with me, but that's how I have viewed it. The select board may have a different point of view on that.
I'm just trying to find funds to offset our tax burdens. And this is a really good opportunity to move forward and gaining our tax base and lessening the burden on individual homeowners. So that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Anybody have any other questions for Lori, for Miranda?
There's another online.
Okay.
Marie, go ahead.
Hi, Marie Elvin, White River. My questions are, how many parking places are we talking? This is just to the right of the co-op?
Yeah, if I could. I don't have it counted. Do you guys have it counted up? No, okay. Okay, so according to this, I'll if you can go on, I'll count that up for you, Marie. If you have another question, you want to ask.
Yeah, the other question was, I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out that eyeglass building that's there. Do they have parking there?
They did right next to the building.
They do have parking there that is part of their parcel. Because they have a separate parcel there, and so
but they have how many spaces do they have?
That I'm not sure of. It's not marked on my survey, but
yeah. Anyway, those were just my two questions about it. Yeah, it certainly needs patching and lines as well, whoever does that. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marie. Eric, you had a question too.
I think you were.
Or Miranda, I didn't know if you were just calling in the person or.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the questions that I emailed to the town manager, there were 4 things, and I think some of them are covered in some of the different activities, I'll call them here. So one, but if I understand things correctly, there's an annual review that's sort of built into the existing agreement between the town and the.
I think the point is that this is something new that's been negotiated. The desire for an annual review, where there hasn't been one in the past. Is that right, Lori?
That's a new thing.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So now there will be an annual review if this is approved or executed.
Mhm.
There's a site review pending the merge of the properties. Is that what I understand? A site review?
Well, there's, if the lot gets merged, if the 2 lots get merged into one parcel, they don't necessarily need to do that because there's 0 lot line setbacks in the district. So that's really something for them to decide in the future. I don't, that hasn't been discussed, but there are, if they decide to merge the lots together as one parcel, that goes through the subdivision process, but also any redevelopment of the site would trigger off a site plan review.
Okay. Right. So maybe I should just go back to basics and go itemize the 4 things that I had questions about. One was the lighting, and it sounds like during the new agreement would have an annual review, and that, you know, the questions about lighting efficiency and adequacy and so on could be covered during that process. I'm looking for like a thumbs up or a, you know,
They can be covered during that period if that's something you want to ensure that's going to be addressed. It may be that if there's a particular concern that you have, it's not light enough, it's too dark, and you want that to be a part of that, that's a great thing to make clear at this point. It hasn't come up on our radar that there was any need for it in a particular location, but that's a good thing for you to flag at this time if you feel like that's something you would like to be considered.
And the reason for the board and for the audience and so forth, the reason I'm asking some of these questions is because 30 years is an enormously long time. And so it's even hard to imagine. I mean, the 30 years ahead of us, or 34 in this case, ahead of us are not going to look like the 34 behind us in any stretch. Things are not happening in a linear fashion. So anyway, the lighting, having the opportunity to sort of make sure that, you know, this is the most efficient lighting and so on. And obviously since the co-op is paying, or someone else is paying for the electricity, they're motivated to use the most efficient lighting. The other question I had is about traffic flow. So there's 3 curb cuts at Maple Street, and I haven't seen any problems there ever, which is remarkable given the traffic coming off of Maple Street. And it's almost like we intuitively, it's like through pheromones, traffic knows how to coordinate there. But it seems like marking that and then having marked traffic flow patterns within the parking lot could be helpful. So that's the other item. And the trees were the third one, having some provision. I mean, maybe it might be something that we think today is impractical, but in 25 years, we might be baking in the heat, and we might be like, okay, you know what? We have far fewer cars than we did way back in 2025, and we have it's a lot hotter. So maybe we want to put some trees here. And so it would be nice to make sure that the town has some say in that. And then the other one was the solar canopy. So at some point the town may say, hey, you know, this is town land. And I'm not sure if the non-exclusive nature of the agreement would allow for that. It's like, we're allowing you to use the parking surface, but we're also going to install something above that, which obviously complicates things like plowing and you know, maintenance to the parking lot and so on. There is a factor there, but looking that far out, it seems to me like if we have a provision in there for potential things like that would be good.
I think that'd be an ideal thing when you talk about the annual review, at which such items as X, Y, Z, and A can be discussed among other things.
Exactly
And
the
that'll be a
same
good checklist for us.
That was exactly the same thing I was thinking too.
Okay.
And that you could just put them on a list for discussion at the annual review.
Yep.
And the other thing is that we can also look at is that's a time for the co-op to come before, or the developer, the property owner co-op, whomever is or both, come before the board on that annual review period, once we've maybe gone through it in an informal way, then come before the select board to just share that information and see where, if there's anything that has been further consideration. And you know, again, it's been a very good workable relationship. And I actually believe you guys are paying for the lights in terms of the electricity. You might, I think that's in their responsibility. Yes, they cover the electricity for the lights.
That's
so,
what I understood. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I
so-
add?
Oh, absolutely, please.
On that point, the co-op if it helps.
You use one of the mics. Just so the people at home can hear you too.
Thank you.
And you can identify your name.
Thank you. This is Amanda Sharland. I'm the general manager at the Co-op Food Stores. Just to speak to the point of electricity and efficiencies, I just wanted to let folks know, as the co-op, we actually have a goal set by our board of directors to get to net zero by 2030. And White River Junction is a really good example of a building that we've actually done a lot of improvements to since we've been there. We came in 2010, and the building was in really rough shape. It had pretty inefficient refrigeration systems, poor lighting. We since have upgraded. We brought our composting programs there. We've brought new lighting. We actually just did LED lighting throughout the entire store. We have upgraded the refrigeration to a more efficient system. So we're incredibly thankful to everybody in this partnership, and especially the town, and we'd be very willing to work with folks to think about ideas for the future. So, yeah,
thank you.
I just wanted to follow up on Marie Alvin's question. Lori ballparks the number of parking spots at about 45.
Right, and those are the ones that are just on the town lot. There are other ones that are on the lot that goes along with the co-op building property owner, and that's the ones that tend to sit right in front of the building as it faces Maple Street, but these are to the right of the building.
So is there anything you need from us specifically?
Well, yeah.
That's good.
So John and I have been taking down some notes and on this, and it sounds like you would like something added to this that maybe would identify at annual review meetings, consider items such as, and we've taken a list of there, which would be lighting efficiency, curb cuts on Maple Street, trees, provisions for potential future improvements on the site for energy efficiencies. And anything else that may come up during the course of that year from either party, okay? And so we can, if that sounds agreeable, Drew, are you still with us? Does that sound agreeable to something that we can add into it? Obviously, we'll go through the wording more specifically.
I am here, you know, to me, and of course, I look at these kinds of documents on a pretty regular basis. So to me, those kind of all fall under what is kind of like a general reading of ensuring proper maintenance of the lot. But if it makes everyone feel more comfortable to spell out a list, I mean, we're certainly no stranger to such provisions in leases saying, you know, including but not limited to X, Y, Z. So that's something that the board feels strongly about including. I don't think you're going to see much pushback from the owners.
So would you like a motion?
So that's one piece of it. Okay. So we can actually make that change to that.
Okay.
So let me just very quickly go over. You've got two forms that were put in front of you as drafts. The first one was, well, actually three. The one is the agreement itself as the addendum. And that addendum presumes everything from the original licensing, the first addendum and the second addendum are all put together as one document. So some of it cancels out what was done there before, but it doesn't repeat everything that was in there prior. That there is, there's also a draft notice of terms of conveyance and municipal real estate. That is, again, a draft. And that is in your attachments. And that was something that at this juncture, I gotta get that in front of me. The draft notice of terms of convenience of municipal real estate. That is a notice you're putting out to the public. And basically what it's saying is, hey, this is something that the board is considering. It was recommended to us, given the long-term nature of this, that you probably needed to go through a more formal process of notifying the public. So in that regard, our attorney suggested we go through this. It is a 30-day notice period, which takes the 30 days begins at such time that after this meeting, and it may take us a week to get all the paperwork together, we will put out notice to the public, and the 30 days would start on that first day. We want to, and that gives full notice to the public that you are considering this issue. There also is a second draft there that speaks to, you have gone through this process, and then now you will be formally activating it. So the 30-day notice is based on have you received a petition from 5% of the voting population that says further consideration should be taken or something like that. They want to appeal whatever you're proposing to do. I'm also saying, and this is something we talked about with the attorney, is that we will come back to you after that 30-day period, and we will say we have or have not received anything. And then at that point, you would be in a position to say, okay, we haven't received anything. Therefore, we are going to you will adopt that formal resolution to activate the second addendum. So what we're asking for you to do today is to authorize the town manager to go forth with putting together the proper language changes that you discussed today in the addendum itself, make those same changes in the notice as well, and then put that out to the 30-day public notice process.
Has anybody written that down so that
it actually is in the motion.
It's in the recommendation.
It should. I hopefully I covered it all in the motion statement.
Yeah, there's
I'm looking at the recommendation.
The recommendation.
Oh,
yes.
I wanted to.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So
Okay.
we're ready to take a motion on. You see the recommendation? Okay. Anybody? Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the board authorize the town manager to make any required changes, specifically the ones we've spoken about here tonight, to the proposed license second addendum, the draft notice of terms of conveyance of municipal real estate, and the draft authorizing resolution and consent of the town of Hartford Selectboard, and to proceed with the required 30-day public notice requirements.
Do we have a second? Second. Miranda? Okay, thank you. Is there any more discussion before we vote? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay. So the motion passes 6-0. And I hope that satisfies the situation.
The only thing I want to make sure is, you make a required change. It's okay. Yeah, you have that in there.
Yeah.
The language.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
You've had a full meeting, haven't you? And a lot of
I thought it was going to be short.
I know, I did too.
That's what I get.
But wait, there's more.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you,
time and
Lori.
consideration.
Thank you, both of you, for
Yeah,
coming
thank
so
you.
late,
Thanks
just
for being here.
sitting through this.
Thank you,
Yeah.
co-op people.
And you were here for the prior presentation with our environmental sustainability coordinator, Dana. So he may be someone that you can talk to in the future about your work. Great. Yeah.
That's what we need. No, just- All right. You are next on Safe Roads to School Improvements discussion.
Good evening. I'm Matt Osborne, a planner in the Planning and Development Department. In 2006, the town partnered with the Dothan Brook School to apply to the Vermont Safe Routes to School program. We were approved back in 2006, and what that allowed us is to be eligible for certain grants through VTrans that would enhance safety of students walking or biking to school. So the grant program resulted in a number of grants. There was a sidewalk on Gillette Street, the intersection improvements at Gillette and Hartford Ave, and intersection improvements at Depot Street and Hartford Ave. There were also radar speed feedback signs that were installed on both ends of Wilder Village. And there was also a bicycle pedestrian scoping study that was funded through the Safe Routes to School program that included Christian Street from Bugby Street all the way to the Norwich Town line, and it also included Bugby Street. So in 2022, the Safe Routes to School grant had some funding. So we were certainly interested in seeing if we could come up with a project that would enhance safety for students. And we met with Rita Cito, the transportation planner for Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission, Rick Dustin Eichler, the principal of Dothan Brook School. I met with the parent teacher organization, and we also got input from DPW. So there was pretty strong consensus to apply for the Safe Routes to School grant to erect rectangular rapid flashing beacons at the intersection of Hartford Ave and Gillette Street on that bad corner by the former Wilder Church, and also where the Wilder multi-use path crosses Christian Street. Cars coming from the south come down that hill very fast, and there's concern about safety of children with the, they have a very successful Thursday walk bike to school day that they conduct in the spring and fall of the school year. So we applied for that grant. We received approval from the select board to move forward with that grant, and we were selected. And the VTrans, instead of giving the town a check for the amount of the project and having us go through the design and going out to bid, they actually contracted with Stantec engineering firm in South Burlington to handle all of the Safe Routes to School projects. So with me this evening online is engineer Eric Alling, who is here to present the plans and provide a recap of the project and the anticipated schedule. This is an opportunity for you to learn more about the project and also for the public as well.
Yeah.
Everybody hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I got temporarily booted when I became a presenter. Let me share my screen. Okay, let me know when you can see that.
We can see it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So Matt did a great job introducing the project, so I'll keep my portion brief. Just to look at our project team, it's Matt and Rita, as he mentioned, and then at Stantec, it's myself and Chris Gendron. And then we are working with Derek Kennison at V-Trans as the project supervisor. Again, I'll be brief, but this is what we'll cover tonight. We'll look at the project development process, review the project areas, look at some of the existing conditions and the proposed designs, and we'll talk about what comes next. So Matt covered pretty much all this. I guess the only thing I would add is that grant fund was awarded to 5 other municipalities. So Hartford is one of 6 in this program, and he mentioned the intersections that we'll be looking at. Normally projects follow this process where you start with a scoping study under project definition. These are really considered more maintenance related projects. So that process has been skipped and we went right into funding and design. We're most of the way through the design process now and construction will be next. So here's a look at the first intersection we'll talk about. This one is Hartford Ave at Gillette Street, and the speed limit here is 30 miles an hour, about 4,500 vehicles a day travel through. There's some residences and drives within the project area, and it's somewhat near to the Wilder Path trailhead. And so, as Matt mentioned, really the only change that we'll see will be the regular signs come out, and these rapid flashing beacon signs come in, and those are, I'm sure everybody's familiar with them. They're pretty common now, but a pedestrian will activate it by pushing a push button. They'll flash for about 30 seconds and it just gives more visibility to a pedestrian trying to cross. Otherwise, nothing else changes at this intersection. Next location is Christian Street near the intersection with Hartford Ave. 35 miles an hour here, about 2,400 vehicles per day. Nearby to the school, as Matt mentioned. One other thing to know at this crosswalk is that it's currently not properly marked and signed. It's missing those pedestrian crossing signs that you typically see. So those will be added in addition to the rapid flashing beacons in this location, along with detectable warning surface, which is currently missing. And again, pretty simple, just setup of signs, along with the flashing beacons. That'll be great for vehicles coming off of Hartford Ave. It'll just make pedestrians that much more conspicuous. So after tonight, we're getting pretty close to final plans. We're expecting to wrap those up in the next couple of weeks. That means contract plans will be towards the end of the spring. Bidding will be sometime late spring, early summer. And construction should start this summer and be completed by the fall. And that's really all there is to this project, but I'd be happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Do you have any questions for Eric?
I can just point out that I've heard from several people up in Wilder about concerns about pedestrian safety up there, and this will be well received, no question.
Absolutely. My neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Miranda?
Oh, there's some folks online. Rita,
Okay.
did you want to add something?
Hi, this is Rita Cito with Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission. I also want to add to the project that the grant fund is 100% funding, so there will be no local match towards this effort.
That's great.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? Brandon?
This isn't a question, thank you. Not a question so much as a comment. I think that these 2 locations in particular are really great for this technology. I think this is like the optimal use case because they really are like thoroughfares, you know. But I also wanted to just kind of mention that I think the town should be really going in the way of like the Strong Towns organization. If any of you planning nerds have heard about that, I'm sure you know of it, but like they often talk about stroads and how you don't want a road, which is a thoroughfare from cars to quickly get from one place to another, to be combined with a street, which is like where people live and businesses are and humans walk. When you combine these things, people can get hurt, you know, and it's just a lesser quality of life. So I think these are great places for these 2 things, but I would just kind of caution us to use other design solutions for other locations. I mean, just sort of take as a grain of salt, if you will. That there are many other design solutions to make cars go slower. And when cars are going slower, they pay more attention to people.
Thank you, Miranda.
We have another online comment. Heidi.
Okay. Heidi, go ahead.
Hi, Heidi Dupre, White River Junction, Vermont. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I agree with Brandon. I'm really concerned with Christian Street with the I live on Christian Street. The speed in which cars travel, coming down off onto Christian Street around that corner, you can gain quite a bit of speed in coming into that section from the Hartford end. They're flying sometimes. I don't know if we could do speed bumps up towards where Christian Street where it joins onto Christian Street before it takes that right to go down, or speed bumps coming into that section going north. But I think that's kind of a blind corner, and without adults being there, I don't know if we're going to have problems with people seeing that light in time to stop, or people are going to be midway through and they're going to get hit, unfortunately. I do think this is great. I'm all about safety. The one over by Gillette Street isn't quite as blind for traffic oncoming. But I also have concerns with Hartford Avenue. Are we planning to move forward to put some up on that section of the school district for crossing over with safety there also? Those are my points. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, anybody else? All right, Matt, did that help you?
Yes.
Oh,
I think Heidi, did you have something else to add? I saw your hand.
maybe she tried to put her hand down.
Oh, it's back up.
I was just looking to see if we could get some input back from the individuals that are there tonight on my questions, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
It sounds like that would be a different grant application. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be. We haven't looked at speed bumps for Christian Street.
I know in general, speed bumps are disapproved by DPW as they conflict with snowplows.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that brings they could not be done under certain circumstances.
I know that coming down Hartford Ave and moving on to Christian, though, if you've ever, excuse me, been on it, you actually have to slow down because you take a pretty sharp right-hand turn and then all of a sudden you take a pretty sharp left. You know, it's not to say it can't be done by some people, I imagine, but I know that that's because I'm aware of it. I slow down immediately right there. And Gillette, I think you're right. It's maybe not as technically difficult, but at the same time, you can't always see it very far either. But I think these are great. And I remember when you first introduced this, so I'm really happy. Yeah, Eric, could you stop showing your, sharing your screen? Thank you.
Does that have to do with the noise?
So I'm impressed that they're, you know, this is happening and it's happening faster than I realized.
And the price is right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, I made this comment and didn't identify the most obvious solution, which is a narrower road. If we want people to slow down, that is the best step, is make it narrower. And we actually have done this in the past year or so, road diets, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that this is a good candidate, these two particular locations for that necessarily. So yeah. This is a good opportunity to do something.
Ashley?
Yeah, I was gonna say that this almost maybe seems like a topic that there's room for a community forum on. I know that there's been talks in the past by folks living out on the flats, and on Hartford Ave about not allowing like tractor trailer trucks and whatnot on that road, trying to turn it into more of a street than a road because it's so residential. And I think that it's a big topic for that whole stretch, which is this, connectedness to the elementary school there, that if anybody out there wanted to
I don't
take
know if
on
that's a state road, so we don't always have much control over what happens on the state road.
Right.
And they have done lots of work on, checking the speeds and things like that. And as the chief had said, as Chief Sheldon had said, they did this over a whole period of time, and they found like 95% of people stayed within a couple of miles, within a couple of miles up and down from speed.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, you can only do what you can do, but I'm sure, Matt's listening, and we can think about what can be done in the future if we find that there's more that needs to be done. But I think this is a good first step.
Yeah.
Miranda?
We have another comment online. Marie, go ahead.
Go ahead, Marie.
Hi, Marie Elvin, White River. The one place that I've noticed or people have mentioned to me on Hartford Avenue, I mean, we do have the two flashing, the one at the top of the hill and by the park and ride, which has been wonderful. It is just past Cumbies. You go down there and people have to cross to go to, I think it's Hollow Drive. That development over there. And I don't think there's kids, but old folks, I think, that are sometimes the cars go by there pretty fast and it's over the hill. And anyway, that was my 2 cents for the danger that I have seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
And that's Manning Drive. And there are children too. There's a Vermont Housing Authority complex back there, as
Thank
well
you.
as elderly.
Yeah, so that is an area. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay. I think that should do it.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Matt.
for
Thank
all
you
of
for the
this.
time.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric.
Yes, thank you for your
Vera
work on this.
and Rita. Okay. We are down to a review select board strategic vision and consider facilitated retreat. John?
Yes, Madam Chair, I put these together on the theory that maybe they could be put together. They don't have to be discussed together. However, I had become aware from VLCT about a pilot program that they were rolling out this year, intended to be of assistance to municipalities wishing to have select board training, or more of a retreat, really an opportunity for select boards to get to know one another and talk about a variety of things that you all do as select board members. And when I found out about it, I pursued it because we do have so many new members or newish members on our 7-member board. And as you'll see, have you seen in the email from Kathleen Ramsey at VLCT, Hartford has been invited to be one of these towns that could take advantage of radically reduced pricing to provide a facilitator to help facilitate a retreat. The facilitator is actually the former town manager in Hanover, Alex Torpy, a young man with a lot of ideas and a lot of thoughts on how teams can be built in the municipal sector. So anyway, long story short, if the board is agreeable, we would simply need to identify for them, for VLCT, some dates and times that could work for a 3-hour retreat. And at the same time, I had heard from one or more members of the select board about wanting to carry the strategic vision in its current draft forward for discussion purposes. And perhaps at least that topic could be raised as part of our retreat if the board wants to enter into one.
Would you like us tonight to agree on some possible dates, or would you just like us to make the recommendation and then individually send you dates that we would best consider?
I suppose both could work. If everybody has access to their calendars, I suppose we could knock it out pretty quickly and avoid follow-up.
Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for putting this together for us, John. And I look at this agenda and I think there's some good stuff in here. And then I think there's some things that maybe aren't necessary, particularly since some of us have just come back from the LCT essential or Select Board Essentials.
I agree.
And then I assume the rest of the board knows that we have an open meeting law, that kind of thing. And I think, I know it's the hour grows late, but I think this might be an opportunity to step back, or maybe we should take the opportunity to step back, given that our time as a board for things like this, retreats, trainings, what have you, is limited. It's a finite amount of time. And there may be options, and we should probably just sort of lay a range of options out, and then, at least look at the full suite of things and figure out what can we do in a given year. What do we think is reasonable, and what are the priorities? And maybe this will be one of them. I have no problem with that, but I think it would be worthwhile for us to just say, hey, recognize that we have some limitations. So top of my list, I would say, are two things. One would be carrying forward that strategic vision and work around that. And second would be what I have been calling annual work planning, which basically takes somewhere in the select board year, which starts the beginning of March roughly. It takes inputs, the select board calendar of events that's fairly static and well-defined and a very good tool. It takes the plan from the past year, which is what do we still have as work in progress, and it takes a bunch of other inputs, and its strategic vision would be one of those inputs, and it seeks to, over the course of a year, lay out for the board, what are we going to try to chew off this year? And in doing so, it provides a communication tool for the rest of the board and for the public. Because one of the challenges that I'm finding, even just early on, is I don't have a lot of visibility into what's going on. So I'm pretty sure that in the coming year, we'll probably entertain the Bugby Senior Center, the transfer station. We've got a couple of things that I kind of know about, but I don't see the full sort of scope of what we're going to tackle for the year. And I don't think anyone does, except the town manager and maybe the leadership, the board leadership. And I think, and I should say that I think that you guys already do this work planning process, right? You would have to, otherwise it would just be chaos. But so mainly it's the board getting together to develop a high level plan, a work plan for the year. And then there's a period of time where board leadership, the town manager, staff do some reality checks and figure out, do we have the capacity to do all these things that we just said we want to do? And then we reconvene and say, now let's prioritize, and we come up with a work plan, and then we start executing that plan and monitoring it and so on. And the public has visibility, the board has visibility. So those are the strategic planning and the sort of operations of the board work planning are two things that I'm hoping that we can spend some retreat time on this year. So these are my thoughts. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to hear from other people. Brandon?
I'm in full support of all those things that Eric just said. I think a 3-hour retreat, I'd be interested to hear what this person, you said he has good ideas. I'd be interested to hear what he wants to add. But honestly, those two things I think could occupy an hour and a half each. I really think that or 1 hour for one and 2 hours for the other. I mean, I know we spent about 2 hours last year altering the strategic plan. So 4 hours, yeah.
Or 3 or 4.
So yes, I think 3 hours is good, but if we can try to set an agenda for that includes those things. I'd really appreciate it.
I could certainly present something at the next meeting, maybe several topics that could occupy 3 hours that are not redundant with what you may have recently learned about on your own or at trainings. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And would you like us still to
No, I
either
don't.
hash out here dates or?
I mean, I do think that they're asking just so that they can do their own planning. I don't think we would need to commit to the details of it. But if you were interested in taking advantage of a 3-hour facilitated training with content TBD, maybe that would be helpful for them to set their own schedule.
Okay. Ashley?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Eric said. My kind of understanding from reading the agenda and from the proposed agenda and from attending the select board essentials is that it kind of would be a more boilerplate, like standardized. I don't know if I really think it's going to be like a diving into the nitty gritty details of Hartford planning. And I think my concern is, does it make sense for us to set aside, whatever amount of time out of our schedules to do that? And then we still have this question of like, we still need a retreat for strategic planning and a year-long work plan. Those feel like bigger priorities to me than the items on the proposed agenda for this.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess seeing what VLCT thinks of that, like knowing that that's kind of our high priority need, I'm interested what they might propose. I'm also not sure if I think 3 hours is enough.
I will be seeing probably Alex at my conference the next couple of days. So it'd be a great opportunity to kick around some alternatives as to how we might use this time.
Okay, cool. Miranda?
Yeah, I'm also wondering if maybe it could be, knowing that like some of these topics have been covered in the board is probably like open meeting law, pretty well versed on those things, then I wonder if they could kind of almost like, because I can see the value and like the building trust components of this. I'm not sure all what it entails, but maybe if we could do like a condensed version of that and then leave a good chunk of time for the strategic planning and annual plan. And I also maybe make it like a 5-hour meeting. I know people would hate that, but I do feel like
hate that if it were productive.
If people were open, that just would
I mean,
be my suggestion.
I was gonna say for context, at the select board essentials, it was like 6 hours and we weren't allowed to talk really. It just was watching PowerPoint. So I think, 5 hours of engaging, productive work, it seems like it would be worth it.
It's called a half day. It sounds nicer than
yeah, a half day with a nice lunch.
I guess one other thought, John. I appreciate you have the strong partnership with VLCT and personal relationship that you have with them. I'm just recalling that our retreat last year was facilitated by a different entity.
Yes, Prism.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that was more, I think they did a good, that was more strategic vision focused and like work of the year focused. So I'm just curious if there's a reason why.
No, there's not a reason why. I simply knew that VLCT was putting together some retreat opportunities. And I thought, again, for a new board with lots of young members, it might be a way, I think, primarily for the team to become a team and discuss things together and work together, almost as though the content was a secondary factor.
Right.
Almost.
I will say, I really enjoyed the Dominic Cloud session that we did, which was not a full retreat. It was like a shorter evening session with Dominic Cloud, who's from VLCT, who knows Hartford well. And the topic of that was efficient select board meetings. Right. And I think that that's something we could, as in case in point tonight, like we can always benefit from a refresher of how to kind of tighten up our meetings so they're more accessible to everyone, including ourselves. So I don't know, that's an alternative path that I could see, like working with VLCT, like with Dominic on a shorter focused session. I would vote for the efficiency one, being the topic of that one again, and then a like half day retreat that, I thought Prism did a good job. I think having an outside facilitator is definitely helpful. If there is a VSLCT entity that could do a similar facilitation, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I think that I wouldn't rule out Prism as another.
Prism is a pay
Right.
substantial amount of money
Right.
operation.
Right. I was gonna say maybe, has Alex, seen some of our select board meetings online?
I don't know, but I know that he did ask about multiple towns in this region as to how they onboard their new select board members. Because I think what he wanted to focus on is how to help, again, communities onboard select board people. And if there are select boards that need assistance working together or reaching out to the community, building trust, as they say, that might be things that he would be very interested in doing.
Because I was wondering if we could kind of combine his expertise and the project with one of the things like the strategic vision or a year work plan, coming at it from both ways, helping us to work together for that kind of training, bonding, whatever you want to call it, and everything. And and certainly he could see, if he did like Dominic did and watch some of our meetings, he could see where some of our sticking points are. That's just a thought.
Yeah.
I don't.
And just to add to that too, I mean, I do think from our work in the past year, we know a lot about what Hartford wants in terms of how to address transparency and communication. And I kind of think we have the answers, or a piece of the answer to that, which is, the communication. We've invested in a communication specialist. We expanded that role. I think we've heard positive feedback that is a crucial piece. And we know that people want listening sessions and events in the community. So with that knowledge, we can build it into the work plan for the year. I think I'm with people that are a little bit hesitant to commit to the content here, because I do think we kind of have a lot of information that we just sort of need to operationalize on these topics. And the more specific nitty gritty of how do we do that, how are we prioritizing our tasks, would be beneficial.
And if he was going to watch any particular episode of the select board meetings, you had to watch this conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. So
Thank you,
go ahead,
Madam Chair.
Eric.
There is some useful content in what's in the agenda. In fact, I went to the Rethink website and I was curious to see some of his information and blog posts, and he had one on volunteerism, and there were a couple ideas in there that are like new and useful. So regardless of how we proceed, if we manage to get our hands on the content, purchasing it or whatever would be useful, I think, in the long run. And the other thing I'll say is, I don't think we want to shortchange ourselves on the amount of time that we want to spend, or that we should plan to spend on some of these things. I think the annual work plan might go pretty quickly because there's a lot of stuff sort of on the rails already. But I think we want to give ourselves plenty of time. For example, with strategic vision, I look at that and I don't understand at a meta process level how it works. Like, how does that synchronize with the town plan, for example? Like, who's the driver? Which one is leading what? And so there's this sort of bigger picture. And on that point, I think when we're talking about what we want to achieve, we should be at a content specific level. We should be thinking also about which party is best to facilitate that. Prism, their website suggests they're sort of content neutral facilitation, which is great. But if we found someone who did, strategic vision type of facilitation, that might help us even further.
Right. And with regard to the retreat with Prism, no disrespect to Prism, I gathered that most of their role was simply encouraging discussion, asking us all to prioritize our priorities, and then transcribing them and presenting them back to us. I didn't get much more than that from their involvement as to specific. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we just might need some guidance.
Yeah.
Back to get through and produce something that is maybe a step forward. I think that's my sense. But
Yeah, I agree.
Good. So let's just put a pin in it.
Okay.
Let's not commit to anything. If I can find the opportunity between now and the next meeting, I'll try to put together some thoughts as to what a content of a retreat might be, and we can discuss it further.
That's good. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you, John.
Sure.
Okay, Brandon, you wanna make a motion? This is your.
Right. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
That's all right, you can call me Mary. That is my name.
It's just fun to say, Madam Chair.
With all due respect, Madam Chair. I move that the select board direct the town manager to work with the select board chair to come up with a date of a special meeting of this board to discuss a revised Gaza ceasefire resolution with the board and the town.
Is there a second? Miranda? Okay, so Brandon's made a motion and Miranda has seconded it. Any more discussion on the motion to ask the town manager with the chair to come up with a date to discuss the Gaza ceasefire resolution with the board and the public? Aaron?
thank you, Madam Chair. One thing I don't have a good sense of is what the drive from the public is at this point. I know last year I went back and watched some of the meeting recordings from the end of May and June 11th, and there was an very active contingent from the public, and I'm just wondering if that still exists. Are people really wanting this? Are people wanting the board to take this up? Just want to sort of get a general sense of.
You want to answer that, Brandon?
Yes, I'm aware that there's some interest. What I would be keen to do if there were a public discussion planned is reach out to the whole networks of folks who were interested in this last year. The folks who filled out the survey, probably more than half of them were online. I think more than 90% of them left their email addresses, and that went into a database. And all of those folks would be notified and asked if they're still interested. I think you saw on there were a good 50 very personal, heartfelt notes left for us. Certainly there will be folks from the last year's committee who will come and speak on behalf of this. They have not presented a draft. They have not gotten together and revised this. As you know, I passed around to the board a draft that I revised that will need to be revised further, and that's what I intended to help to help facilitate the board to come up with whatever draft it prefers at such a public meeting.
Does that answer your question, Aaron?
It helps. I guess I raised this because, as you may be aware, I see a distinction between dissidence and resistance, and a non-binding resolution carries. It's an action of dissidence. It's basically people complaining, frankly, to put it rather bluntly. And given the current administration, given the things that are going on in the world, it's not worth doing. But my sense is that if you're going to do something, or if we're going to do something, let's take an act of resistance, something actionable. So for example, just if the town had investments, for example, and we could divest, that would be something that's actionable. And then we could say, look, we're doing this for this reason. This is our moral stance, and this is what we're taking this action, and it has some effect, and it has a bigger effect if we spread the word, right? I'm not unsupportive, but I have reservations about an act of dissidence versus an act of resistance, and so that's why I'm asking about the public's sort of willingness to step up and help with an effort like that.
Absolutely. I am in full agreement about this dissidence versus resistance. I think it's a much higher calling to do, for example, as some young people have done, and cut into the roof of a building that manufactures fighter jets and spoil the clean room. But that's not something that this board can do, or the town government,
and it's not something that I'm advocating. I'm not advocating vandalism or violence.
Okay, so what the board can do is, if it has the will, pass something that it failed to pass last year. And one thing it can do is alert the congressional delegation that there is an option of actual resistance, which Cory Booker had done in the last 24 hours. And that's what I advocated for in my draft I circulated, which is the filibuster. So not a lot of power. I totally agree. Not a lot of power in addressing the presidential administration of Donald Trump right now. But that is one small power that's available.
Randy, you had a question?
There was a hand up, but it has gone down.
Okay, and I will say, I'm sure this was just an example, Eric, but Brandon did ask last year to our finance director, and none of our funds are used in any way, shape, form.
Right. I think there may be other avenues if we wanted to pursue things like boycotts, for example.
Yeah.
There's certainly plenty of resources that identify companies that do business with Israel, for example. It really depends on the appetite for how far we want to go. And if we just want to pass a non-binding resolution with the understanding that maybe there's some filibuster action, I would support that, but I would like to see an exploration of a greater potential if the public has the appetite to do that. Basically, if they're asking us to do something, it's kind of like, well, kind of step up and what are you willing to take on here in terms of changing the world?
Okay. Any other questions? We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded.
Can I ask a question about timing of this?
Yes.
We obviously meet every other Tuesday. Is there a date in mind that the board feels would be appropriate, or does the board want to leave that to the board chair and the town manager to discuss and make a decision? I know that the motion says that we should do that, but I'm sure Mary and I would like to know what you had in mind for a timetable. On the one hand, I know you're anxious for swift action. On the other hand, you want to marshal all the support you can. So I'd be happy to hear what you have to say about that.
Thank you so much, John. I think something appropriate would be something in the week of our next meeting, or perhaps something as late as a week after our next meeting. That feels a good balance between those two conflicting.
Thank you for that.
We have an online comment.
Okay,
Heidi, go ahead.
go ahead, Heidi.
Heidi Dupre, White River Junction, Vermont. Does this fall within the duties of a select board to be discussing outside town business and not posing all of your work towards bettering our town and working on running our town?
Do you want to answer that, Brandon?
I'd like to, if, hi Heidi, it's Brandon. The reason I'm proposing a special meeting of the select board, and maybe it's just before the next meeting or something, maybe that would, that you find that easiest, I don't know. But the reason I'm trying to pose it to be outside of the normal business meetings is so that we can focus our time during our regularly scheduled meetings on town business. This would be an extracurricular, if you will, and I for one will not be filing for my payment for that meeting for what it's worth.
So let me reword this. Is this the proper avenue to be discussing this on town property? Shouldn't you be going through your own groups to further, I'm not saying this is not good, but what I'm trying to say is you are a select board. You have been elected to do for the select board. Yet if you bring this forth as the select board, you're muddying the waters because you're not running the town. You're not working on how to enforce policies or ordinances or pay for things, bring projects forth. This is something out of our control. As Eric stated, there is nothing that can be done by this town. But it's not, I don't believe, within your purview of your duties as select board members.
Could I?
Go ahead, Miranda.
I think the reason that I think that this is something that important that the town gets behind isn't necessarily because it's something that's actionable, which I would love to talk more ideas on, like action oriented things that we also can do. But I think it also sends a message out to the wider community, to folks in the surrounding areas, that this is something that the town believes in, that this is like, I think it signals more so that this area is like a safe space for folks, that people will be welcomed here, find home here. Like this isn't a place that's, signing off or okay with these types of egregious acts happening in the world. So that's just, how I see the town, the importance of the town's involvement.
Can I speak to that too?
Yeah, and then we're getting later and later.
Yeah, my understanding was that last year, a group that was working on this issue brought it to the board. And I think they went out and they got like 500 signatures from Hartford residents. Is that correct?
It was something like 490, 495.
Yeah, and while, that petition isn't being brought to the board today, it was brought to the board. And I think if any group of residents came to the board with nearly 500 signatures, for the board to not take up and have a discussion on that issue would be like a gross, like misrepresentation of the people of the town. So that's my take on it. If residents are bringing this topic forward, it's worth us discussing.
Were those all Hartford voting residents, Brandon?
They were. There were 10 or 15 others who were not Hartford voters, and they disregarded those.
Okay,
so,
I think that wait, Heidi, we're not carrying on a dialogue at this point, and
I think say one thing and then be done.
Okay.
I would suggest before you make any motion to do this, that you all go and look at the general duties and goals of the Hartford Select Board. And if you still find it within your purview, by all means, move forth.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, I will say one thing, that we, as Ashley has stated, we have done this before. So I think if, you know, if the select board ever comes to a point where they don't want to do resolutions anymore, then that would be in their purview to say the board isn't going to consider resolutions. But at this point in time, I think we have had a history of doing resolutions. And so we have a motion on the floor, we have a second, and I just want to know if we're ready to take a vote on this. Okay, all right, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and so that passes 6-0. So John and I will get together and do what we can here. Okay, so commission reports. I'll start with Eric. Do you have any commission reports, Eric?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I attended the Historic Preservation Committee, Hartford Historic Preservation Committee meeting on March 19th. And just briefly, the Demers Avenue and Victory Circle Highland Park Historic District nomination work is currently still in progress. The earliest possible date that the Vermont Advisory Council on Historic Preservation will review those nominations is June. The Performing Arts History Report was updated with an interview from Bill Bittinger on the White River Indie Film Festival. And this was interesting. I thought the Historic Preservation Commission really just dealt with buildings and things like that, but they do, they sort of preserve our history through interviews with farmers. And in this case, the performing arts history goes all the way back as far as they could go with interviews and so on. It's pretty interesting content. And those reports will be available on the webpage for that commission in the near future. The railroad station weather vane, which you've probably heard about, it's going to be installed in a protective case in the lobby over here at the west end of the foyer. I think there's some work still being done on figuring out that case. And lastly, that commission, because I guess it falls in there, it was on their agenda anyway, the 250th anniversary commemoration committee came up, and they asked me to ask the board whether the board was planning on appointing a liaison to the 250th anniversary commemoration committee.
That will be on the April 15th agenda for discussion.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
All right, Miranda, anything? Okay, Ida?
Yes, I did go to the Energy Commission meeting, and we heard a lot from them tonight. So in addition to planning for the presentation that they gave tonight, there's just a few things I'll mention in case there's any ears out there hearing this in the future. But the Energy Commission is looking for volunteers to help with their annual window dressers workshop event, which is one of their major kind of like flagship events of the year that they do to help build window inserts to members of the community to help better insulate their homes. So they need both a client coordinator and food coordinator. So reach out to Dana or Jesse if you want to get involved with that awesome event. And they're also going to have an electric vehicle expo this fall. That'll be right here, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the future, but it'll be outside the town hall, Lyman Park, and they'll have all types of EVs, including some of EVs from our Department of Public Works in terms of their like electric lawn maintenance vehicles that they use for the public to learn more about electric vehicles. So two of the many exciting things that the Energy Commission is working on. And yeah.
Great, thank you. Brandon?
I attended the Planning Commission meeting. It went 3.5 hours. It was a very normal Planning Commission meeting otherwise, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Great. Ashley?
I attended the Resilient Hartford Committee meeting, and some updates there are that they will have some upcoming work days at the Clifford Park Food Forest and at the Huichi Abenaki Garden that is in the works. So I think it sounds like sometime later this month, there'll be some information going around about all the like Earth Day, green up and gardening type projects that they'll be looking for volunteers to come out and participate in. I also did go to the zoning board meeting, and that was a pretty typical zoning board meeting. We did talk about setbacks, so.
All right, thank you. And I went to my last, maybe, H. Corey meeting, in which they met on Saturday, March 29th to start planning for Juneteenth. There's also a draft resolution to make Hartford a disability friendly town with a certification. And they have been meeting with the Lebanon DEI Commission to talk about Juneteenth. And finally, they are still working on a gender inclusivity policy for the town, since the school already has one. So that is it. All right, so we are into the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for adopting the consent agenda?
Can I, well, go ahead and make the motion and then I will jump in
Okay,
briefly.
yeah, all right, so is there a motion for the consent agenda? Someone willing to make it?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Brandon.
I move that we approve the payroll ending 3/29/2025, approve the AP manifest of 3/28/2025 and 4/3/2025. That we approve meeting minutes of 3/18/2025, that we approve revised meeting minutes of 8/20/2024, and that we approve future meetings 4/15/2025, 4/29/2025, and 5/13/2025.
Thank you, Brandon. Do we have a second? Eric? Okay.
And I just wanted to jump in by saying thank you for considering revising the minutes from August 20th. It's a small matter of $500 variation between the intended motion and the actual motion, and Gail needs the minutes to correctly reflect the different figure. That's the only change that has been made to those minutes.
We also have an online comment.
Okay.
Kim, go ahead.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, hi y'all. I guess I would love, now that I don't have access to this information anymore, but I think that the payroll in the AP manifest that gets delivered to the board on the day of the meeting to be part of the public record. So I guess I'm just requesting that those be part of the minutes going forward.
I know that I've raised this topic with finance, and both finance and other staff members have objections to personal information being shared with the public. But if you'd like, I can certainly ask for more of a clarification as to the reasoning for those concerns. Some of these things talk about health insurance payments, which could indicate number of people in the family. Some of these are sensitive issues that staff were quite concerned about. Maybe Kim can remember her recollection of past discussions of this topic, but I'd certainly need to poll staff and get their input on it.
Yeah, I guess I'd appreciate some research on that matter. Like, I think it is all public record, and if it were just included as part of the minutes, that would be great. And so if you could, if there were a way to just verify that that was possible or not, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, Brandon, and seconded by Eric. All in favor, say aye.
Can I ask a question?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Okay, Ashley?
I want to make sure I understand this. Future meetings approved means that the meeting dates are approved.
Yes.
Perfect. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the motion passes 6-0. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn the select board meeting? Whoops.
Before you do, just a reminder that we have documents to sign, one of which is the revised select board rules of procedure. You've already adopted them, but we'd like to have a signature copy for our files. It does make the two changes that we talked about. And also, there's payroll and accounts payable over here for signature.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second? Second by Miranda.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And I.
Now, thank you.
So,
everybody.
I better thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. I've been sitting too long.
Yeah.
Very good meeting.